Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, and the Chiefs Digest live Q&A has started actually on time. So, booyah. That's all I got to say about that. Greetings, everyone. I am Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. A little bit later on, I know that Nick Jacobs is in the comments, but I'm assuming he will pop in a little bit later once the groceries are put away. Knowing him, probably before he eats his dinner, he'll pop in here. But and I thought I had succeeded with a win by liking all of the questions that were posted before 7, and of course in the comments that I was going to be putting on the screen. And of course, the StreamYard did not save them. So if you posted any questions, had any great comments before 7, repost them. You'll get them up there. I know Tom's best one there was what is a football. Would be glad to get that one up there if it's asked again. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions, I'm sure, about Mango's receivers. I'm sure there'll be some questions about the trade deadline next week. DeAndre Hopkins, Joshua Uche. There's a lot to talk about in Chiefs Kingdom. So I'll probably just dive into the questions tonight. I don't think much of a monologue to deliver this evening, and I'm sure that your amazing questions are going to touch on all the topics that I would bring up. So we will just dive into it. And the first one up, Des the Gym 95, is Watson supposed to be back by at least the playoffs? If not, is a cornerback trade realistic? When Jalen Watson can be back is really kind of up in the air. I haven't really gotten a really good specific answer. I think the Chiefs are hoping that he is going to be back by the playoffs, not necessarily a guarantee, and we haven't gotten a specific timeline on him. So I wouldn't be super optimistic about it, but we'll see what happens. If not, is a cornerback trade realistic? That is, yes. Well, no. I mean, here's the bottom line. What I have been told is that the Chiefs would love to get a cornerback trade. Getting one done is just more difficult because there's just no one available. There's not anyone that right now that the Chiefs would want to acquire. It's possible that in the next week, that we're now less than 7 days away from the deadline next Tuesday, still a possibility that a player or that the Chiefs would be interested in will pop up and become available, but there's just no guarantee. And once again, I mean, because of the Chiefs situation with the salary cap, it's going to have to be somebody who is affordable, so low priced. It's also going to have to be somebody who's decent and pretty good. And if there's a team out there with an affordable, decent cornerback, kind of want to hold on to them themselves. I mean, even if it's somebody who's going to be a free agent after the season, they'd rather hold on to them and get the compensation for them. It would be, could be a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick. So, that's the difficulty that the Chiefs are going to have, and they've tried to turn over the bottom of the cornerback group. They've had some different players coming in through the practice squad. Got Eric Scott on there now, had Keith Taylor, brought him up from the practice squad. So there still may be some turnover at that level, but, as far as there being a player who's going to come in and compete for a starting position or be somebody who could be in the rotation, that's the dream. I mean, that's the one player left on Brett Veach's to-do list. I mean, they've been searching for that for the last few months. I mean, they have not been comfortable with the cornerback depth going back to the off season. So they would love to try and find somebody, but just isn't available. So that's going to be the challenge, Des, is if there is a player who fits into the Chiefs, cost, fits into their salary cap issues, and isn't going to cost them an arm and a leg from a draft pick standpoint. That's just the real challenge. But as of right now, that cornerback does not exist. Doesn't mean that, like I said, in the next 6 days, it could pop onto the market and become available. We'll see what happens. But I'm not going to hold my breath. That's the one thing that the Chiefs seem pretty pessimistic on, about whether or not there's going to be a cornerback pop up. They'd love to find one, but right now, there's just nobody out there. So, Chris, at what point does being undefeated create more pressure than going for a three-peat? And Chris, I've been waiting for when this question was going to pop up because I noticed that you're not asking, can the Chiefs go undefeated? But you're asking a question in that ballpark where, when does this, the pressure of being undefeated create more pressure? Um, uh, it's a good question. And I don't know about more pressure because the pressure, to three-peat, I don't think it's really high right now. I mean, that's something that's just going to ratchet up once the playoffs start. And that's something that, I think we're really going to see, once the Chiefs, get into the playoffs, that you're going to see that ratchet up astronomically week to week. Right now, going for a three-peat, wouldn't it be nice? And the Chiefs, obviously, right at this point, knock on wood for you all, are on cruise control at this point for the playoffs. So there's not really any, concerns about whether or not they're going to make the playoffs or not. They're just, seem to be pretty destined for that. But at some point, the questions are going to start. As long as this undefeated starts, remains, eventually it is going to start turning into the questions of, hey, can you guys go undefeated? Is that your goal? Would the perfect season, the most amazing season of all time, be a 17-0 with a perfect run through the playoffs for a Super Bowl? Super Bowl is 17-0, never been done. That's certainly what people are going to start asking this team the longer this streak starts. And Chris, by the fact that you're asking right now, is at what point does being undefeated create more pressure than going for a three-peat? It's probably this week. And certainly with a Monday Night Football game, that usually brings in more of a national crowd, we'll see, during the press conferences on Thursday and Friday, if there's more, some national reporters who are coming in, if they do, because I think that's going to be more of a national question. It's the networks and the national writers that I think are going to be more interested in that topic and asking it. Then maybe the local writers will. So, like I said, I think that's just more of a national discussion. So, if it gets asked, because of the Monday night game, the first press conferences won't be until Thursday. So it'll be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Just as far as how the sausage gets made, Saturday press conferences for Monday Night Football are usually lightly attended. Anyone even that's come in for a national coverage of it usually is not there on Saturdays. It's since it's a fast Friday, fast Saturday. Usually, there's obviously college football going on, so there's just not usually as many reporters and photographers that are attending that press conference. So it's going to be more of a Thursday, Friday topic. We'll see. We'll see if it gets asked on Thursday and Friday. Because Chris, I think just the moment it becomes a conversation, it becomes more pressure than going for a three-peat. So we'll just see when that becomes a topic. And like I said, the fact that you're asking it, I think is probably going to make it a topic this week, because I think that you're a pretty good barometer. I mean, the Chiefs fans are pretty good barometer about when it's going to be interesting to people. And so they're probably going to start getting that question. Jackson, why do you think the Chiefs went after Hopkins instead of Johnson? Good question, because I mean, obviously we saw the compensation for Deontay Johnson. That was affordable for the Chiefs, and his contract was doable. I'm trying to bring up the specifics of it, just so I'm not. I've read and looked at too many contracts over the last couple of weeks, getting ready for the trade deadline. His base salary this year, well, I mean, I know that I guess going forward, the cap hit for the Ravens is going to be 3.8. Not bad. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be actually less than that, so that's a good deal for the Chiefs. But flat out, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is better. I mean, there's just absolutely no doubt about it. Even at this point in their careers, with Deontay having a few years on, or with DeAndre having a few years on DeAndre Johnson is better. And I think that there's if we get another question later, maybe Nick might chime in on this, but I'm going to borrow a Nick Jacobs line. And I already asked him for permission to use this line. I would like to have waited before he got here. Maybe he's in the comments watching, so he'll know it. But I'm borrowing a Nick Jacobs line that trade and the swapping of 5th and 6th picks that was the Carolina Panthers telling Deontay Johnson, hey, we're going to play a game of you're not going to be here anymore. Uh, that was just a giveaway. That was absolutely just the Panthers absolutely telling anyone in the NFL, take this guy off our hands. I mean, there's a little bit of cap savings, but that was more about just get this guy off the team. And I'm not saying that, Deontay Johnson is as a team wrecker or anything like that. I don't have any reason to believe that, but I mean, this is the second team that's had to get out from Deontay Johnson. The fact that they flat out gave him away, I mean, says a lot about Deontay Johnson. And so I think that was the number one concern that the Chiefs had, because I told you the last couple of weeks, I mean, the Chiefs had basically a list of 6 or 7 criteria that they wanted to check off. And one of the most important criteria for a trade wide receiver, a trade target of any kind, was that it can't be anyone who's going to come in and make a mess of the locker room. I think that wasn't a concern with Deontay Johnson. So I think that was definitely an issue. But talking about just pure football, DeAndre Hopkins was still the choice. That was the right one. I mean, he is a future Hall of Famer. He's got an exceptional football IQ. He's a good mentor. He's just clearly been a good chemistry guy, good player to have around. You don't hear a bad word whatsoever about DeAndre Johnson, but he showed on Sunday his ability to come in and pick up a very complicated offense quickly. And I did not have a lot of faith that Deontay Johnson could do that. I mean, he doesn't have really much of any experience in the West Coast offense, and not under Andy Reid's version of it. Neither does DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins has repeatedly shown an ability to pick up offenses quickly. So, and he's obviously, like I said, I mean, one of the reasons why he's going to be a Hall of Famer is that he's got an incredible off-the-chart football IQ. So the ability of him to be able to come in and pick up this offense rapidly, I think, was an important factor. I mean, to me, age is probably the only bracket that you would just say, okay, Deontay Johnson has an advantage there. In every other category, I think it's DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, I mean, if the Chiefs were just going to add one receiver, D-Hop was the one. So that's the one that they would have absolutely preferred. And honestly, the fact that, I mean, they could absolutely have still picked up. Clearly, they could have picked up Deontay Johnson if they wanted to. That would not have been a hard deal to beat. I mean, it's maybe 20 or 30 spots in the draft, maybe less. I mean, it's not a big move. So Chiefs could absolutely have beaten that offer. They could have just, given up a 5th or a 6th and not asked for anything back, and it would have been a better offer. So I think it's 100% indication the Chiefs were not interested in Deontay Johnson, and I can see that. And like I said, if you gave me a choice between D-Hop and Deontay Johnson, I'm taking D-Hop every day of the week and twice on Sundays. So, Mango, is it a possibility that we see Kingsley Suamataia back at left tackle on Monday Night Football? I mean, I do think it's a possibility, Mango. We'll see how practice goes this week, and we'll see what Andy Reid has to say on Thursday once everything gets back, because that will be a topic and will be a question about who's going to be starting at left tackle and who they're going to go with. We'll see if he just flat out declares one as the starter. Wouldn't be surprised if he did. Wouldn't be surprised if he left it open-ended. But I'm going to stick by my prediction, from the very beginning on this whole process. Once Wanye came in, the Chiefs are only making a switch back once. So once they switch back to Kingsley, he's the starter the rest of the way. That's when they want him to, then they feel like they're comfortable that he's worked through any mental blocks that he's had, any issues, any concerns, that he's fixed any techniques, anything that they've got concerns about, that they feel like that he's cleaned up and he's ready to move forward and be the starter at left tackle long term. They have no interest whatsoever in this being a bouncing back and forth. So as long as Wanye stays out there, you've got to assume that the Chiefs are saying that they believe that Wanye is the better answer at that position right now. And I'm sure it'll come up, hey, could the Chiefs be trading for a left tackle? Would they be interested between now and November 5th? Possibly, but I can't imagine the Chiefs finding a left tackle on the open market, trade market, that could help them out. Because, I mean, left tackle is one of those positions, it's a little bit like quarterback. If you've got one that you trust and like, you're not going to let them go. And especially if they're cheap. I mean, Cam Robinson's on the move. And I know there was some speculation about Cam Robinson maybe becoming a Chief. He's got a $17 million cap hit this season. There was no way in the world that Cam Robinson was coming to Kansas City. No one with a $17 million cap hit is coming to Kansas City. There's just no room under the salary cap to get that done. So if there's a left tackle that's coming to Kansas City, it's someone that's very affordable. And I'll point it out now, the NFLPA salary cap report, the public salary cap for the NFLPA, which is the absolute best and most reliable for telling you where teams are under the cap. Chiefs were minus 5.2 on this morning's report. And I'm fairly confident that did not include Jawan Taylor's restructure. It could have. They might have had to make some other moves, but there's just flat out no cap space to make a major move. I mean, the Chiefs can always finagle with the cap to get, a small contract under the salary cap, but you're not squeezing in a guy that's with a $17 million cap space. And you're certainly not going to be able to offer enough coming back in a trade for a team to eat that much cap space. So, you think about it. I mean, you think about a cheap, affordable, good left tackle. They don't generally exist. And if they do exist, there's not a team in the world giving one up. So especially one that's capable of starting at left tackle for a Super Bowl champion. So I still think that, I mean, if the Chiefs are going to do anything, I mean, I would think that it would be much more likely to be a move with bringing in a free agent. And I mean, that's where Donovan Smith might come into the conversation. But I'm thinking and really feel like at this point that I don't know that anything's going to get done. I mean, there's certainly two spots the Chiefs would absolutely look at bringing in and would be interested in making a trade in the next week. And that would be tackle and cornerback. But right now, the market that fits what the Chiefs want and can afford just doesn't exist. And yeah, Mingo, you do bring up that when the Chiefs initially traded for Jawan Taylor, there was the conversation about moving him to the left side, and that didn't happen. Kingsley played better at right tackle in college, Taylor left tackle, and Kingsley at right tackle next year. It is possible. I mean, certainly when the Chiefs made the deal for Jawan Taylor, and that was a free agent deal with Jawan. When they signed him, I mean, it was with the idea it's like, hey, if we can't find a left tackle, you might be the left tackle. So now they went out and got Donovan Smith, so didn't need Jawan at that place last year. And I don't think that they have any interest in making that switch mid-season. If they were forced to make that switch because of injuries, I think that's the only reason why they would do it. I don't think that they're just going to do it for, fit. I mean, especially because they really don't have any film in game of Kingsley playing at right tackle in the NFL. And I don't think they have any interest in, doing that to him and putting him in that kind of spot. So, I mean, the only way that Jawan Taylor moves to left tackle, I think, is that if you've got injuries. And it might require, you're talking about injuries to both Kingsley and Wanye. So, what the Chiefs end up doing there, particularly for this week and the long term with Kingsley, if there's going to be a move back, I mean, I haven't seen the evidence of it yet. Doesn't mean that it's not possible and that it is coming up, but just haven't seen it on the board yet. So, Brian, is there a direct correlation between pass rush effectiveness and masking crappy defensive backs? Please explain. Direct correlation is a good question because it's entirely possible that there's some mathematics out there, some statistical correlation that can tell you that a team's pass rush. I'm not aware of it. Like I said, it's a possibility that it's out there, but obviously, yeah. I mean, the theory is that yes, that an effective pass rush can help your secondary because obviously the quicker and more effectively you're able to get out of after the quarterback, then the less time that your defensive backs have to cover. And it's generally I don't know if it's I guess more of a stereotype. I mean, maybe an old wives' tale. What do you want to call it? That hey, anybody in the NFL can cover for a couple of seconds. It's just you can't cover forever, and the better you are, the longer that you can cover. So the idea is that if you're able to get after the quarterback quickly, anybody can cover for a couple of seconds in the NFL. So that's why pass rush effectiveness can sometimes maybe make your secondary look better. I don't know if there's any direct evidence of that other than people believe it, but hey, the Chiefs certainly believe it. The Chiefs certainly believe that if they can get after the quarterback, and it's not about even masking poor defensive back play. It's just that the Chiefs are a defense that believes that if you can get to the quarterback, then good things happen for the defense. If you get to the quarterback and get a sack, that's a big play. If you get to the quarterback, you can affect the football. You can put it on the ground. You can affect the throw. You can create turnovers that way. So, the Chiefs' approach with it, I don't know if it's really, Steve Spagnuolo's belief is not necessarily as much that, a good pass rush and pass rush effectiveness, makes up for deficiencies on the back end. I think his belief would be that if you've got good play up front and you've got a good pass rush, then you've got a better chance of making big plays for the defense. And obviously sacks and turnovers are those big plays. So I think everybody might believe it a little bit differently. I think there are probably some coaches out there that would say, hey, wait a minute, you know what? I don't have a very good secondary, so I need to beef up pass rush to be able to get after guys. Now, I mean, I'm assuming this kind of connects Brian to the trade for Joshua Uche. And I'll say, I mean, the Chiefs have wanted some depth at pass rush, some experience depth, and they've also wanted a piece that gives them something that they really don't have. And Uche does that. I mean, he's a speed rusher. He's somebody who can just come steaming off the edge, going after the quarterback and get around the tackle. I mean, can George Karlaftis do that on occasion? Can Chris Jones do that on occasion? Yeah, sure. But, Chiefs don't really have a pure, dedicated speed rusher. Well, no, they do in Uche. So I think it gives them something that they want. Obviously, I think the Chiefs have been okay at creating pressure on the quarterback. They haven't been getting the sacks that they want. And if they feel like Uche can help them, hey, turn some of those pressures into sacks, then that's a good trade for the Chiefs. And I actually like the deal. I mean, I do think it was a good move for the Chiefs. I think it's going to help them. I mean, that gives them a 5-player, rotation going into later in the season when Minihue gets back. You'll have Karlaftis and Dana as the starters. And then you've got a Minihue, Felix, and now Uche as your rotation behind them. I mean, barring injuries, I don't think you're going to see as much of Cam Thomas or Malik Herring. I mean, that's what this move does. I mean, it does cut into their time. But Uche's a good player. I mean, 2 seasons ago, he had 11 sacks. What, the only other player on the team that can say that is Chris Jones? I mean, Karlaftis has had double-digit sacks, but he had 10 and a half last year. So Uche obviously gives them something that they haven't had. So I definitely think that's a good deal. I mean, I'm pretty impressed at that acquisition. So Cody, were the players the Chiefs traded for on Nick's fits for the Chiefs? Tell you what, Cody, I'm going to star that one and bring it back for Nick. I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to put those words into his mouth. But Dez, will Juju be back for the Broncos game? And I think this is Dez. I think this is one of the ones that you asked before 7 that you reposted. Thank you, because I think you were talking about whether the Chiefs would be rushing him back or maybe saving him for the Buffalo game. What I was told this week is that Juju will probably be back in a couple of weeks. So I take that as probably being back for the Buffalo game. Certainly will not play this week. Possible, I suppose, that he could play against the Broncos, but I think it's a lot more likely that you're going to see him against the Buffalo Bills on November 17th. Chiefs don't necessarily feel like a huge rush to get Juju back because, again, I mean, they're trying to build their team, their roster, their rotations for the postseason. I mean, they're already at that point. So they would rather have a fully healthy Juju Smith-Schuster in the postseason than obviously one that's, dealing with any nagging injury. So I think you're going to see them protect him as much as they possibly can, keep him, on the sidelines until he's as close to 100% as he can be this season. And if that means he misses 2 more games and is back for Buffalo, I think that's a lot more likelihood. So we'll see what happens there. Mango, is it more likely that Mike Caliendo replaces Tooney if he leaves, or will it be Hunter Norzad, in your opinion? Good question. I mean, I firmly believe that the Chiefs drafted Hunter Norzad with the idea that he was going to be one of their starters in 2025. So, they've still got Trey Smith that they need to try and get, signed to an extension. So at this point, and that's assuming that, the Joe Tooney doesn't maybe get restructured and they bring him back for one more year. That's always a possibility that Tooney, decides to take a bit of a pay cut to stick with this team. We've talked a lot about how that he's not going to be back next year on a $27 million cap hit. Doesn't mean he can't be back on a lower cap hit. So if Tooney doesn't leave, then you've got one spot at right guard. If you don't get Trey Smith signed, if neither one of them come back, you got to have 2 guys. And in that case, it's a possibility that Caliendo could, become one of those as well. You're going to put CJ Hansen in that conversation too. I mean, CJ Hansen was drafted with the, once again, the possibility that they might need to replace 2 or 3 interior linemen next year. We know they will have Creed Humphrey back. Now it's just a matter of what's going to happen with Trey and with Joe. We haven't seen enough of Hunter Norzad, but I think the Chiefs have liked what they saw of him in training camp. So my gut says that yes, that if the Chiefs need a starting interior lineman next year, I think it's going to be Hunter Norzad over Mike Caliendo. We'll see what happens. It's a long way until then, Mango, but that would be my bet right now. I would bet on Hunter Norzad. And Cody, why is Wanya Morris getting a longer leash than Kingsley did? It looks like Wanya isn't improving, but rather regressing each week. And I don't know if I'm going to completely grant the premise there, Cody. I get it, especially because Wanya had a really bad sequence, in the second half when he had back-to-back holding calls and almost had the safety, and then the Chiefs had the turnover, really resulting from the holding calls because they just got pushed back into their own end zone. I didn't think he had as many bad moments outside of that. I mean, I think that there were still some positives. I mean, once again, there's some good and there's some bad. And I don't know if it's completely about as long as a leash. I think it's more about, Kingsley really got overwhelmed there. I mean, that's why they went out and, and got him out and put Wanya in there. I don't know. I would say that Wanya has been completely overwhelmed. I mean, he had some tough matchups this week, clearly. And I think the Raiders did some really good things as far as attacking him. I'm also, and I don't believe that this was true. And I'm not saying it was true on those 2 holding calls back into the end zone. It's 100% on Wanya. Don't get me wrong. But there were a couple of pressures that Mahomes kind of drifted into. There was a few moments where I really saw and believed and felt like that Mahomes just took too deep of a drop. And with the way that the Chiefs were protecting and the way that they were trying to set up a pocket, I mean, they were trying to make it, it's the same thing against the 49ers against Bosa last week. They were trying to make it so that Mahomes could step up into the pocket, and if he needed to take off, there would be lanes up the middle, and that's where he would go. And obviously it worked pretty well against the 49ers. The one bad habit that Mahomes can sometimes have is he will drift. He'll get into the pocket, and then his feet will just kind of move, and all of a sudden he's maybe 2 or 3, 5 yards further deep than he's supposed to be and wants to be. And I saw that happen a couple of times against the Raiders, and he kind of drifted into some pressures. So those you can't blame on Wanya Morris. Not to say that Wanya doesn't deserve some criticism. I mean, it was not a great effort from him. I mean, he had some really, really bad snaps. I'm just not sure I would call it regressing, but like I said, I don't think it's a leash necessarily, but the Chiefs do not want to get in a flip-flopping situation. They don't want it to be a case of Wanye struggling, so let's put Kingsley back in there, and then be like, oh, Kingsley struggling, well, let's put Wanye back in there. I firmly believe that, because this has certainly been Andy Reid's history, Andy Heck's history in Kansas City. I mean, you've seen it with several different players. We saw it with, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. We saw it with Zach Fulton. We've saw it with Andrew Wiley. I mean, we saw it with Austin Ryder. We've seen it with some different players that once, if the Chiefs take out a guy because he's struggling, when they put him back in there, they want it to be for the long term. They don't want to flip flop. They don't want to be, this guy's in, this guy's out, and just shuttling guys in and out. They don't want that. They want consistency. So they would rather, have Wanye continue to play if he's serviceable, rather than shoving Kingsley back out there if they don't think he's 100% ready yet. I firmly believe that when and if Kingsley Suamataia is put back into the starting lineup for the Chiefs at left tackle, it's because he's going to be there for the long term. They believe that he's 100% ready. So if Wanye is getting what you'd call a short leash, I think that's why. And I know Nick is in the green room now, so I'll wait for him to get set and give me the thumbs up before we bring him in. But I just hope. There we go. The thumbs up, Nick Jacobs.
Hello, Matt Derrick. I think my mic's working properly. We'll see. Nope.
Well, now this broadcast is
USB.
This broadcast is going to go up to 11 now because we have Emmy winning Nick Jacobs in the house.
All right, who's got the best question? Put it in the comment section at the bottom right now.
I had a question that I had to say for you, and I'm going to get to that. But
the answer's already no. No, I'm just kidding.
Brother Brick with the super chat, so he moves up to the top there with the issues at left tackle. Anyway, Ethan Driscoll gets a shot at the position, and you are our offensive line guru, Nick. So I'm going to let you have first crack at that one.
The only way he's going to get a shot at left tackle this year is if there are 4 or 5 injuries in front of him, and you do not want that.
I don't think it would have to be that many, but probably at least 3.
Okay, yeah. Give me your 3. I'll give you my 5.
Wanye, Kingsley, and Jawan Taylor.
Okay.
Possibly Tooney, but I'm still not 100% that Tooney with the Peck would be that they'd want to put him out there at left tackle.
He's a veteran. He's a veteran,
but he's got the short arms, Nick.
Didn't matter in the Cincinnati game when he was putting people in the dirt. Somebody named Trey Hendrickson didn't give him problems.
That was before the Peck injury.
I don't care. You're paying him $20+ million. Go put somebody in the dirt.
You have had a sport coffee, haven't you?
No, I actually haven't today, but I did get to eat, so I'm pretty pumped right now.
Okay, if you've eaten and had a good night's sleep, then that's better than sport coffee.
Actually, nailed it on both fronts. What is Gary saying is pre-recorded right now?
Who would be your 5th?
Why is Gary saying this is pre-recorded right now?
I don't know. Why are you saying that, Gary?
Yeah, why are you saying that, Gary? It's 7:34. Here, this is proof of life or whatever.
Pre-recorded.
In your face, Gary.
Well, no. It is with a big laughing face, so I think...
No, Driscoll, I think, is going to be that... Yeah, this is a year where he learns what he needs to learn. This is a redshirt year. And, when rookies come in, the biggest thing that they have to work on for the most part, if they're not a top 10, top 15 pick, and even if they are, is strength. So they need to get in the weight room, and they need a full year of NFL strength to be able to get to the strength level that they want or that is required in the NFL. And let me put it this way, there are a lot of offensive linemen in college that develop a lot of bad habits, and offensive line coaches have to spend most of the year breaking those habits. Eric Fisher had some bad habits. Some of them got broken. Some of them remained till 2020 when he was done after that. But he was so athletic, he could get around some of those things and be able to, work around some of them. There's just like Mahomes can with some of the stuff Mahomes does that other quarterbacks can't. So just athletic ability can override some technique issues from time to time. So hope I answered that question for Brother Rick.
There you go.
First off, I love that name. That's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
It
is absolutely
on the intrawebs.
And I'll co-sign on everything there. I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I potentially see him maybe getting a shot earlier. I mean, over some other guys. I mean, or would it be, hey, if Wanye and Kingsley went down, and then you didn't want to take the risk with Tooney, could Jawan Taylor move to left tackle and you put Ethan Driscoll at right tackle? I think that would be maybe a more likely solution than some others. But you're correct. I mean, it would have to take a couple of injuries, I think, before Ethan Driscoll would get a shot this year. But okay, so it's not that we're pre-recorded. It's that apparently I'm competing against myself right now because I recorded a Locked On Chiefs podcast with Ryan Tracy earlier today, and that's apparently airing right now on the RGR channel. So I'm just competing against myself. So
congrats, Matt. Congrats.
Yes. Another super chat from Jesus. Thank you to both you and Brother Rick. Truly appreciate that. And Jesus, congratulating you on the award, Nick, as we all should be. Congratulations on the Emmy Award.
Thank you. That's all I got on that. I don't hit spotlight.
Is this where you have celebrated and now it's the next day, you're moving on to next year and moving on to the next year's Emmys?
I got to figure out some stuff to do differently.
Don't celebrate after midnight?
Yeah, no, that's already over with. That's already passed. Accomplished what I needed to on that front. Now we move on. That's what I'm doing.
If the Chiefs, what Jesus is asking though, if Chiefs finish 15-0, do the Chiefs rest guys for 2 games?
I think that'll be up to what some of the leaders of that locker room want. Because I think at the end of the day, and Nick Wright said it best on Fox Sports, because I'm going to give him credit on that. He's the first one I heard say it, and I don't disagree with him. The only thing that matters is if they can win the Super Bowl. Going 17-0, going 19-0, okay, that's great. But if you want to make yourself an elite dynasty, if you want to put yourself on air that nobody else has been before, to where when they talk about you in football history, that you're above the Patriots, you're above the Niners, you're above the Steelers, and the only other team that competes with you in the modern era of salary cap is the Patriots. The Patriots have what I like to call a longevity dynasty. They were able to maintain winning for almost 20 plus years because of Brady and Belichick together. Like, that's the longevity dynasty in my book, to where playoffs was expected, not hoped for. But I think they'd be up to like Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones, and depending where everybody's at from a health perspective and everything, then you kind of get to that point. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if the Chiefs lose a game in the regular season, I don't think they care. I don't think they care one bit. Because I think every single person in the locker room, every single person on that coaching staff, every person in that front office, they want the three-peat because they know what that does for a dynasty. The records for the Patriots and their back-to-backs, or the Broncos and their back-to-backs, or the Steelers and their back-to-backs, or the Niners and their run. Do you know them? Without looking.
I do not know them, although
you don't, because it doesn't matter.
It does not matter, but I'm fairly certain that there were some 11-5s in there, and
that's fine. All you remember is how many Super Bowls did they win.
Exactly.
And that's all people remember. I mean, sure, they'll be like, oh, they went 19-0 and completed the three-peat. I think that's like an added bonus if they do it, but I don't think that's their – at the end of the day, I don't think that impacts what they're going to do that helps them win the Super Bowl.
I only remember the record of one of those teams, Nick, and I remember the Patriots going 18-1 because they went 16-0 and they didn't win a Super Bowl. So all I remember about that team is that they did not win a Super Bowl.
Right.
And why did they not win a Super Bowl?
There was a guy coaching the defense.
That is right. Steve freaking Spagnuolo.
Some guy that's on the Chiefs right now.
Exactly. But I'll bring this up because Chris asked this earlier, and I want to get your opinion on it. Chris was
No,
asking
I refuse.
at what point does going undefeated become more pressure than three-peating?
Here's where the beauty is, where the Chiefs have been. There's enough players in that locker room that'll keep their focus on the practice field where it needs to be. I think the biggest thing would be getting some of those players to ignore social media. I think players may hear something from family and friends texting them and that type of thing. But there's a reason Andy Reid always talks about eliminating, like just get what's real when he says that, what's real. And that's one of those situations where you can't press. And so if they were a team going on this run for the first time and not knowing what's at the end of the season, if they're able to be successful, then I would say, yeah, no, the pressure's probably going to get to them. But they've had so much pressure on them. They've been battle tested so much over this 5-year run that I think they shockingly would actually handle it a little bit better than most teams would. And the Patriots is the only thing that comes close to being in that realm, to where the Patriots were also in that era to where they were used to pressure and they were used to all eyes on them and having to make big plays in big moments. So I don't know if they're going to get there. I don't care if they get there, as long as they get that three-peat. That's honestly like that. That's what they're going to be remembered for more than anything else.
Yeah. Jesus asked a question, and I'm going to throw out a kind of a related topic to that.
Where's it at, Matt? I don't see a new question.
Well, it's it's kind of it's a continuation of Jesus's, and it's my own question, because
Matt, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to charge yourself $5.
I'm gonna have to charge myself $5 for that one. But no, I mean, related to that, I mean, hey, if the Chiefs were 15-0 after beating the Texans on a Saturday,
Yeah.
and then they've got Christmas Day, the Broncos, that's one thing.
Yeah. Steelers.
But what did I say?
You said the Broncos.
Oh, sorry.
They got them the week after. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But they got the Steelers and the Broncos, those two games after the Texans.
Right.
If the Chiefs have the 1 seed clinched, everything wrapped up on Christmas Day against the Steelers, that game against the Broncos becomes irrelevant. But it also means that because that game's on a Wednesday, that the Chiefs potentially might be going 18, 19 days between games if they sit all of their starters against the Broncos. So, I mean, there could be, I still think that mini bye week there could be tremendously advantageous to the Chiefs, but I also wonder if it could be disadvantageous if they decide, okay, we're going to sit everybody. It's one thing to get maybe 2 weeks off. Getting almost 3 weeks off, is that just too much rust? Or is it just a good problem to have?
One, it's a good problem to have. Two, I think we're creating problems that don't exist right now. We're sitting in a rocking chair, rocking back and forth and not going anywhere.
I will gladly admit that we are worrying about a problem that may not exist. So,
yeah.
You never know.
I'm not about that life, Matt, okay?
I'm so far behind that I'm still at 7:05 and 7:06.
Well, that's unfortunate because I'm going to dip out at about 8:30, so you better light this candle, sir.
That wasn't even the question I was trying to click on, but that is actually the next one up. So, Brian, is there anybody worth poaching from practice squads? Perhaps O-line.
So here's the problem a lot of people have is like they assume like we're an NFL front office, that like I've got a board right now and I know every single player on every single practice squad and I've watched all their film. I've got a lot going on in my life that doesn't deal with NFL all the time. You don't win Emmys by obsessing about coaches' film all the time. Do I watch a lot of coaches' film? Yes. Do I watch a lot of games? Yes. But I have a certain window in time where I do that. And then that goes bye-bye in the car. And then I move on to what I actually have to do in the week and what I have to do to be able to pay pay bills, have health insurance, things of that nature. And unfortunately, being a pretend GM isn't one of those that helps me do that. And I'm not knocking Brian on his question. I haven't really paid attention to other teams' practice squads. The Chiefs, they do that for a living. They'll figure it out. And then if a player pops up and I recognize them, I'll go look through my draft notes if they've been around a short amount of time. And then I'll post those. And then people will ask me 80 questions of like yesterday. They're like, so how are they looking now? I have no idea, but that's next on my list. But people are so used to instant analysis now that people will expect you to have all the answers within 5 to 10 minutes.
My short answer,
this on-demand world, Matt.
My short answer to this question is that, no, because what the Chiefs need would be a number 2 corner and potentially let's say a challenger starting left tackle. Mm. If there was anybody on a practice squad worth competing to be the number 2 corner or worth competing to be a starting left tackle, they would already be on a 53 somewhere.
That's a solid point.
Now, if you need somebody to be a swing tackle or you need somebody to be a number 5 corner, those you might find on a practice squad somewhere. So that's, I think, the only challenge. Cody had a question that I saved for you, Nick, because it was right before you came in. Were DeAndre Hopkins and Joshua Uche on your Knicks Fits board for the Chiefs?
I'm pretty sure Josh was, because I had 5 stars next to his name, and that's normally when I get really excited about a player. DeAndre Hopkins was 2013. Like, I didn't start making the big board till 2017 because people were asking for that, so I adjusted and pivoted to that so that people could have a board that they could use on a yearly basis. So I've done that board since 2017. I ironically couldn't put out that board in 2017 because I was about ready to get laid off from my company I was working at that Matt and I previously worked at, and I was up for a potential couple interviews that were in the NFL community, and I didn't want to sacrifice something that that may happen for me that was going to be real and actual part of my future versus playing pretend GM for a little bit. So, but I posted it later whenever I got back when I got another TV job.
I have a lot of faith though in 2013. If you had a big board, I think he would have been a fit for DeAndre Hopkins. Would have been a fit for the Chiefs.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, I've gotten more selective in receivers that I put on there now, and I get selective on guys who don't look as athletic on tape for some of the things I think Spagnuolo wants to do, and there's certain things the Chiefs are okay with at running back that I'm personally not. So I'm just going to keep my board the way it is, anyways. And yeah, and then receiver wise, the thing that I'll never 100% be able to gauge is how well do they understand an offense. And what I mean by that is how well do they understand, how quickly can they pick up the coverages? How quickly can they understand Andy Reid's offense, or will they ever be able to? And that's kind of the question that answers if a wide receiver does well in the Chiefs offense or not.
Yes, I completely agree. Cody also had, you were looking for the best question of the night, Nick. Cody asked, how are we doing? Nobody ever asked us how we're doing, Nick.
I'm fine. How about yourself?
I'm fine. I went to the gym today.
Oh, yeah?
I did.
Don't tell people what gym or what time. They might show up.
I'm not worried about that. I mean, everybody here's, nice and everything, but yeah, that's probably.
I'm saying that might be your you time where you reset.
I definitely. I mean, it's not that I would definitely not be fearful of anyone coming out. I would just be embarrassed because I'm not. I mean, I'm just getting back into my routine and
there you go.
Trying to, and I'm not very good at it. So those are some problems.
You're building a foundation, Matt.
I've exhausted a lot of talking about Wanye and Kingsley and whether the Chiefs are going to make a move at some point. Here's Brian's version that I will just let you pontificate on, Nick. Mm-hmm. When can we expect Kingsley to get some more live action?
Either when they think he's ready or when Wanye Morris gets hurt. We will all find that answer out at the same time. It'll be one of those two things that'll happen. So. I mean, at the end of the day, like you've talked about many times before, and we've talked about on the podcast many times before, once you make the move back to Kingsley, you have to stick with that. And right now, Mahomes is in a rhythm with what's going on as is, and it hasn't got to an unbearable point to where they feel like they've got to rotate, switch it back to where it was before. So even if Patrick only knows he's got this amount of time and he's going to have to move at this time, and when he's at this drop, he's going to have to move and maneuver here and here. He's at least got that expectation right now. He at least understands that. With Kingsley, that may change again, and then you want to do that. If I'm going to say this now, it's going to be mean, but it's true. If I were in the Chiefs' shoes and you're really thinking about making a move, you make that move against the Carolina Panthers. So that would be the game that would get everybody kind of back to zero on that point if you were doing something like that. But in Buffalo, that's going to be a high-stakes situation. Broncos got a good defense overall. The Bucks, it's kind of hit or miss right now. They're good against the run. Pass rush, kind of 50-50. So I think 1A will probably have a better week this week because he's not going against the likes of Max Crosby.
There you go. Adrian, when will the media, and I mean you guys, going to start asking questions about the left tackle? How long will you guys allow Veach and Andy let Mahomes get killed out there? I'm not trying to be, defensive here or anything, Adrian, but I will just say might read and listen a little bit more because it has been a question every single week, as far as who's going to be starting at left tackle. I mean, hey, is it worth asking a different question this week, as far as just where Kingsley is and what's the progression and what's his development? But I mean, it's been a topic every single week, and I'll be the first to admit that we're not the Philadelphia media corps. I mean, nobody in our media corps is just going to, say, well, what the F are you doing? Why aren't you starting somebody else there? What's the problem? Or when are you going to take these guys and, old yeller them or something? I mean, we're not that core. I mean, I think that we've challenged Andy Reid. I think it is going to probably continue to get more difficult about the left tackle question. I know Adam Teicher and I, for the most part, have asked that question each of probably the last 3 weeks about who's going to be starting at left tackle and what the situation is. So I'll defer to you, Nick, about your thoughts on that, but that's all I have to say.
Hey, yo, Adrian, you see me? See me? Look at me right here. We're going to have a chat right now. Here's another problem I have. You entered a hot button, and it's not about left tackle. It's about people saying to us, hey, you need to ask this because I want a pound of flesh for something that I'm unhappy about. Let's get something clear right now. The Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls, getting ready to go for a third. They know how to maneuver around anything that they have to, and they've proven so in the past 5 years. So if it gets to a point where they're uncomfortable with it, and if it gets to a point where this guy named number 15 is uncomfortable with it, they'll do something about it. So we can ask it every week, and we can ask it 5 different ways from Sunday, and we can annoy the heck out of Andy Reid about it. Andy Reid's not making the change because we ask about it. Let's get that clear right now. They're not going to do anything because the media is pressuring them. They're going to do something because it's what's best for the football team. It's what's best for that offense. It's what's best for that execution of the offense. Right now, they are rebuilding this offense from what they had to remove at receiver because of injuries over time. So they had to go get DeAndre Hopkins. They had to go do, these little things. They're slowly bringing along Jared Wiley right now, and it's something you and I keep getting these questions on Twitter and everywhere else where people are like, hey, when's Jared Wiley going to be an impact? You and I said in August and before that it was going to take at least to week 8 before you started potentially seeing something from Jared Wiley, because that seems what it's like for rookies. And sometimes I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because we literally set people up to tell them, here's what to expect. Here's what the little increments to watch for along the way. And then we still get asked about the things that we've already tried to prepare and brace them for. It's like we put down a net for them to be able to jump on, fall onto safely. And then they're like, no, I'm going to jump over here where there's no net. So that's my rant. But I do take it. I do get irritated when people start saying, hey, you need to ask this because I want my pound of flesh to feel better about them being held accountable. These aren't politicians. They're not officials that, quote unquote, have to be held accountable for. It's football. It's football. It's a game. it doesn't impact people's lives in terms of the decisions they make don't impact the general fan base. So, I mean, we can ask about it. It gets asked every single week. It's just, we understand that after that's been asked, we all move on with our lives. It's been touched on. It's been done with. You don't have to ask it every day that Andy Reid's at the podium. Heck, Andy Reid was asked about it on Monday. And I'm sure he'll get asked about it again tomorrow. And I got 2 guesses on who are going to be the people to ask him. And then we'll see. And then it's done. Then you don't have to ask it anymore at that point because it's already been done for the week. And so that's where I'm at on that one.
I think we've exhausted the subject. Brian, Brian, just being a smart aleck, and I know from the 3 little laughing emojis that you're just being a smart aleck. So there. Albert. I enjoy getting these questions, Nick, because I know that if Albert's got this question, a lot of other people probably have the same question. Mm-hmm. Can you explain void years? I know Juwan and Patrick have void years on their deals. Take Jalen Hurts, for example. Why does Spotrac show $97 million cap hit for his first void year? I mean, void years, put simply, is when you sign a player, and one of the tricks of the salary cap is that when you give them a bonus, whether it's a signing bonus, certain types of roster bonuses, restructured bonuses, whenever those types of bonuses that are allowed to spread out over future years, you can spread them out over 5 seasons. However, there's some players that don't want to sign a 5-year deal, but the team wants to be able to spread the cost out over 5 years. So like with Jawan Taylor, the Chiefs, with one of his restructures, they added on the 2 void years. So that meant that they could take, I know with his contract, it's not a ton of money, but it's $2.6 million that they're going to be accounting for on the salary cap for him once his contract ends. So the Chiefs are able to basically take from the future to pay for right now. So Jawan Taylor isn't committed to the Chiefs for 5 years. He's got a shorter contract than that. He'll become a free agent, but the Chiefs are able to take his salary cap hit and just spread it out over to the future. And you do that, you can only do it for 5 years. And that's the way, like, Mahomes has some interesting things in his contract, because some of his, roster bonuses are set up to be, and the Chiefs are allowed every single season to take those roster bonuses and convert them into signing bonuses. And so for Mahomes, that means even though he's got a 10-year contract, 12-year contract, however you want to look at it, with Mahomes, whenever they do one of those restructures, they then spread that money out over the next 5 seasons. So you're reaching a point with Mahomes, for instance, where when they start doing some of those restructures, it's going to be going into future years, and it'll be for years that he's not under contract, but you're still going to have a salary cap hit for him. I don't remember, were you looking at Jalen Hurts, Nick, or seeing how his was set up, or?
No, I was looking in the comment section.
Any good comments that I should know about then?
No, not yet. I mean, there are, but we're going to see how long it takes you to get down to them.
There you go. Well, since I'm still at 7:10, I guess we should move to lightning round. We're at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, bud. Remember, you only got me for 30 more minutes. I got to put my foot down after that.
Kelsey and Hopkins have 945 career receptions. Does either make it to 1,000 this season?
I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. Like, we do this every week. We try to make me predict things. Guys, there's only one thing I want to predict in life, and it's the lottery. Okay? Outside of that, I don't really care. It doesn't make me money.
It's a good question, though. I mean, to me, because you know what? I'm going to say yes to Kelsey, no to Hopkins. Will Ohio State versus Penn State be the college football game of the year?
I haven't watched either one of them on a regular basis to be able to tell you that it's going to be amazing or not.
See, and I hate the Big Ten, so I don't care. So sorry, Chris. I mean, I hope that doesn't hurt your feelings, but I just don't like the Big Ten.
Lightning round.
Got
to stay on task.
It's lightning round. Keep me on task.
Matt, if we both go over a minute on each question, we've gone too long.
Well, there you go. All right, we'll try and aim for that then. I'm looking for questions, so I just see a lot of great comments.
There's plenty in there. You just got to keep looking for them.
I'm getting to them. Of course, you always have to remember to put your question marks in there, because otherwise I probably will just think it's a good comment and not a question. So
Luttrell's literally got one. Luttrell's got one at 710.
Oh, how did I miss Luttrell's?
I don't know, Matt, because that has a question mark in there. You're so locked in on these 3 question marks. You're just reading the defense a certain way.
Oh, there we go.
There.
Finally, Luttrell. Is Lamar going to be able to get the most out of Johnson?
No.
Deontay Johnson.
No.
No.
I'm not a fan of that trade.
I'm not a fan of that trade either. I mean, Baltimore does not have a defense. That's what they should have been going out and getting. I understand it was a free player because they basically, the Carolina Panthers just gave him away. But
the Steelers have a history of trading players for a specific reason. Let's play a game called Antonio Brown, Latavius Bryant, now Deontay Johnson. What do they have in common? The Steelers don't get rid of talented receivers until they become a problem in their locker room.
This is true.
And then they play a game called "We're going to let you go somewhere else."
See, everybody, I stole Nick's joke before he got here.
So they played that game to the Panthers, and now the Panthers played the game of hot potato, and they're like, we see why now. Here you go. And
okay. I know
it becomes the Ravens problem in a Ravens locker room that always has problems.
I know that the last question by Adrian set your buttons off in a bad way. Adrian is now going to push your buttons in a different way. Why can't Andy Heck develop tackles? Not a single tackle developed by Andy Heck. The Ravens lost their O-line coach and they replaced him.
Okay, let's be fair about the Ravens lost their line coach, or O-line coach passed away. Like, let's not. Yes. That was a sad, tough situation that they had to pivot really, really quickly on. Because it came on pretty quickly because he left training camp and then sadly he passed away a couple of weeks later.
Yeah.
So, and the guy they replaced him with was George Warhop, who was originally up for the offensive line job here. The only reason we know that is because Doug Peterson slipped up and said it on a conference call before George was out of his contract with the Browns. So there's that. Look, it's a question that I don't have an answer for, but the rest of this year, depending on how Kingsley and Wanye do, like, that's a question the Chiefs are going to have to ask themselves in the offseason. If they don't develop, is you keep investing 2nd and 3rd round picks in offensive tackle and it's not working out. So where's the problem? Is there misidentification in the player's skill set? Is there something developmental wise that's not happening? There's something strength training wise, and that all needs to be asked after the season when it comes to that, because the reality of it is, especially for Andy Heck, a line coach, they've got to develop Ethan Driscoll. They've got to develop Hunter Norzad. They're going to have to develop Hansen, and they're going to have to develop Kingsley, and they got to develop Wanye. They got 5 guys they got to develop to be able to reduce the cost on a lot of their offensive line over the next 2 to 3 years. So if those guys don't get developed, yet all those resources were put into them, and Norzad, I can't remember if I said Norzad or not, but he's on that list too. If they don't get all of them developed, that becomes a big problem in 2 to 3 years from now. So that's something in this offseason that they do have to answer one way or another. And we'll see. The longer it takes Kingsley to get on the field this year, that question is going to come up at the end of the year. And so, I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I'm not going to say he's not capable, because I know there's stuff he developed with Eric Fisher. I know there's offensive linemen he's been able to improve that were veterans that he's paid. People can argue that he helped develop Creed and Trey. But what I saw in Creed and Trey, for the most part, they already had coming out of college. So that's, I'm not saying he didn't help them in some ways, but I personally think there's a certain baseline the offensive linemen have to have coming in for him to be able to help improve them. I think he can help manage offensive linemen and help them in slow increments, but having to develop a lineman from a specific level, I'm not sure of over the past 11 to 12 years that they're been here at this point. But I could be terribly wrong. But I have asked former offensive linemen their opinions, so I am aware of those.
I mean, and you know what? I mean, I haven't, you know what? I mean, I haven't watched a lot of Andrew Wiley since he left. I haven't looked at his PFF numbers. Not that those are the end all be all of anything. That might be the most interesting case study, you know, as far as looking at Andrew Wiley and seeing
Nick Allegretti.
And Nick Allegretti.
Because he got Zach Fulton paid. He helped Jeff Allen get paid. Donald Stevenson got to go to the Broncos for a little bit. But as offensive linemen say, he does help them get paid to go to their next spot.
But we're also getting to the point where there's more players not getting paid from recent draft classes than are. I mean, yes, Creed and Trey Smith are huge hits. To your point, you could argue that they came in as pretty well molded pieces.
Yeah, Oklahoma and Tennessee, they're pretty good at developing a line. They don't mess around these days.
Even if you said, okay, but hey, even if you said, hey, Andrew Heck still deserves credit for that, well then, but you still have question marks on Kingsley. You have question marks on Wanye. You didn't develop Lucas Niang. You didn't have a success with Darian Kennard. I mean, there are other decent pieces that have come in, and there are others that I'm even leaving off the list here. I mean, I won't blame you for Khalil McKenzie. It was a 7th round pick that you were trying to convert from tackle to offensive line, the defensive line to offensive line. But
yeah, but given who his dad was as an offensive lineman, it's realistic on that one.
Yeah, it was absolutely realistic. The Chiefs believed they could do it, and they didn't do it. So, you know, it's worth asking why. So.
Yes, I don't disagree with you there.
Dez, is Lattimore from New Orleans not realistic?
Didn't he like 17 million?
That's my question, and I'm going to look at his.
Hey guys, anything that's not veteran minimum,
real quick.
Anything that's not veteran minimum, so like $1 million, $1.5 million or less, is going to be unrealistic with where their cap's at right now.
Yes, exactly.
So the question you need to ask yourself for any player you're wondering about: are they less than 1.5 mil? If the answer is no, then no go. If the answer is yes, then possibly.
Now, possibly because Lattimore has $1.2 million as a base salary for this year. However, he has 2 more seasons under contract, 16 next year, 16.5 the following year. There's a couple of roster bonuses that are small over the next couple of seasons. Bigger concern would be, I mean, and 2 parts of it. I mean, one,
age and injury, because I know he's been injured recently.
Yeah, he has $31 million in dead cap space that the Saints would have to eat. Without even looking at the Saints situation, I would assume that they have no way whatsoever of being able to eat that money.
The Saints are like over. Like, I mean, I think I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure when I looked the other day, they were over by almost 100 million. Let me double check. Oh, they're only 62 million over now.
Well, even for this year, because I mean, they'd have to eat some of this either this year or next year. They got 1.7 million in cap space this year. And then there's actually also the problem is that, you know, even though I know Nick thinks that they should be sellers, they're crazy enough to think that they're still in the playoff race. So
yeah, because people like to keep their jobs, man. It's the weirdest thing.
Seen no evidence whatsoever that they actually think that they should be sellers. So, you know, and then, I mean, let's say it all did work out. And now I'm looking to see the details here. The 13, let's see.
21-minute warning.
I was looking to see because it doesn't, well, you know, of all the sites out there, I'm not going to bash anyone in particular right now. They all do things well and some things bad when it comes to the details of contracts and everything. So some of the sites do it well. Some sites do other things well, and some do other things poorly. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, you're looking stuff up. Julia Gooley at 8 o'clock asked, "Do I put pineapple on my pizza?" No, I don't. No
one does. No, that's false. Yeah. Sorry, Julia Gulia. I can't find the question, but no, that's just false.
Oh, I'm at 8:00 because there's people that are going to be disappointed that we spent 5 minutes looking this up. So I'm trying to answer other questions for people.
Lego, when do you expect Pacheco back?
I mean, hey, if he's back before Christmas, that's awesome. If he's not, I wouldn't be stunned either.
I was just looking to see if there was any of that money in the future that was guaranteed. It is not. So, yes, you could walk away from the rest of that money for Lattimore after this year, but it would just still require the Saints thinking that they're out of it, and I don't think that they are. Yep, that's just, I mean, that would, I think, be the ideal for Pacheco. I mean, it would be probably the end of November if you're getting back for December. But once again, I mean, this is true with all of the Chiefs injuries. There's not in any rush to get anybody back because they are setting up their rotations and what they want to do for the postseason. So they're not going to bring anybody back that's 75% or 80% or anything like that. They want these guys to be ready. Duncan, with the Fortson injury, will Hendershot get a call up?
I think Hendershot's doing perfectly fine in the practice squad right now. And that was used for Joshua. It's roster spot.
Yeah. I mean, they've got the roster spot filled. So if they did, they'd have to. And I mean, the four tight ends was really more dictated by the wide receiver situation. The fact that you had some injuries there. So I'm assuming that now that you've got Hopkins and you're trying to get him in and everything, you could possibly continue to see some practice squad elevations on the receiver side, like you saw on Montreal, Washington, this past week. I wouldn't be surprised if Nico Remigio got a shot here pretty soon. See what he's got. I mean, all three of those guys, and I'll throw in Justin Ross in that conversation too. All of these guys have been, working with the assumption that they might be called up on a week-to-week basis. So, I mean, it's not like anything special needs to be done. Those guys are working for the possibility that they will be needed. Mm-hmm. Gabo, opinions on how the D-line room turned out for the rest of the season now that Uche joins and that Eminihu will probably be back sooner rather than later.
They'll get added to the mix and they'll try to do some of their NASCAR packages at some point. And then when Mike Dana's perfectly fine, they'll have him in the mix and they'll rotate between Jones, Warden, Karlaftis, Eminihu, Uche. So, I mean, we'll see, but I think that'll be a big mix of what they do.
I agree, and I kind of talked about it a little bit later. So since we're in lightning round, I won't pontificate on it again. Mango brought all his O-line questions today, Nick. So
good, that's good.
Hey, John, with Wanya Morris having a bad day Sunday, do you think Suamadi will get a start? I mean, I guess we have talked about that quite a bit, Nick. So short answer.
There's
maybe
nothing different I can say than what we've already said. And that's on you, Matt, for picking that question.
I guess
we've already answered it like 4 or 5 times.
That's I know, John. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. It is my fault. It is absolutely my fault. Brian, can college players skip the draft and enter the league as an undrafted free agent, effectively choosing their own team? No.
But they can put stuff on social media that would make them comfortable being drafted.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, that would be the only way.
I'm not aware. I don't think that there is any way because I think that any college player that comes into the draft has to go through the draft process. So in order to enter the league, I mean, it's a weird thing. But
unless they went to like CFL and did that, and then
that's the thing. That's the one catch is that they would have to play in another league, enter that way, and come in the back door. And that's risky. That's hard to do.
Matt, you got some money questions.
Oh, my goodness. You're right. I missed my stars. All right, folks. Sorry about that.
What would you do without me, Matt? What would you do without me?
And see, Casey Harold helped me out here. He bought my question, Nick. See, so.
What?
Rob, hey, did the Chiefs get their rings fixed? You know what? I do not know, Rob. That's a very good question. I'll ask around and see. I mean, I know when I asked, if there was a possibility that they were going to get fixed and everything, I had one person that was relatively decent in the knowledge of the situation who said that, hey, the rings were really expensive. The players, nobody minds that there was the error on the rings. So I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't, but I'll try and find out for you, Rob, unless you've heard something, Nick.
Oh, that's super expensive. I don't. If I were in their shoes, I'm like, yeah, I got a ring. I'm fine.
Rob also was asking about Lattimore. So now I feel bad, Rob, we answered your question without bringing your question up there. I apologize.
But you recognize Rob's question, which is half the battle.
There you go. And Rob had another question. What do you think the three-peat ring will look like?
I hope they get there first, and then that can be a next year question.
Yeah, I mean, I have thought about that, about what kind of whiz bangs and gadgets they would put on there. I mean, I'm assuming that if they three-peat, I'm assuming Clark would just go all out on that.
They're going to get rings that they can wear as a hat, like that one guy that goes to Chiefs training camp.
I mean, they've already done the ring that you can take off and have the top wear as a pendant, and you've got the sunken stadium and everything. I mean, I don't even know what whiz bangs you could have next, but I'm assuming there would be a lot of threes involved.
I don't know. 14 minutes, Matt.
They'll probably have like 333 diamonds and 333 rubies. Okay, Timothy, super chat. Thank you very much. Okay, no left tackle, wide receiver. How long does Spags coach defense?
If the Chiefs, here's the thing. If the Chiefs complete the three-peat this year, and a lot of it's because of the defense, I would be surprised if Steve Spagnuolo isn't a hot commodity. I'm going to be surprised if a lot of defensive coordinators aren't hot commodities after this year with how offenses have been slowed down to where the pendulum may be swinging to the other side. And Steve Spagnuolo's been a head coach before. He's been a successful defensive coordinator. Now the question becomes, does he want to call his own defense? 2, what does he learn from his second time around Andy about how to manage a football team, and what type of culture does he create wherever he would potentially go? If he answers those questions right for owners, I could see him potentially getting a job somewhere else. And I could see if the Chiefs do complete the three-peat, I do think that defensive coaching staff would get picked apart. And I think some people from the front office, including Mike Bergonzi, should become hot names. Doesn't mean definitively that it will, but I'm saying if the Chiefs get a three-peat done, I think this will be the time where you start to see some of the very talented coaches on that defensive coaching staff and some of the talent in the front office go get new opportunities, and then the Chiefs got to start coming up with guys to replace them with.
If the NFL is serious about two things, and that's one, teams actually trying to win, and 2, serious about trying to dismantle the Chiefs, then yes, you would absolutely pick apart this front office and this defensive coaching staff in the offseason, because Joe Cullen deserves to be a defensive coordinator and get his shot. Dave Merritt deserves it. I think Brendan Daly deserves a shot to be a defensive coordinator. I mean, there's 3 guys right there that could absolutely be poached from this team. And Steve Spagnuolo, if I was an NFL owner, I'd hire him as an NFL head coach. Would I be concerned about the fact that he's 64 in the future? Sure. And I would probably want him to have as either associate head coach or one of his 2 coordinators to be a potential head coach in waiting, the person who Spags would see taking over for him. But in the NFL, most about winning is about setting a culture. And do I believe that second time around and what he's probably learned from Andy and from honestly that year he spent out of the NFL, do I believe that Spagnuolo has learned a lot more about creating a culture and an organization than he had 15 years ago? Yes, I absolutely do. And I also think that he absolutely got shafted in that first time around, because not only was he with a terrible, terrible organization, but I think they saddled him with some real nonsense. And obviously, they spent up their money in very bad ways. They drafted poorly. That wasn't on him. So I'd love to see Spags get another shot. And, how long? I mean, how long would he just remain a coordinator? don't know. I don't know if he'd want to go to 70. I mean, I think he'd probably like to, hey, enjoy retirement at some point and, enjoy his wife's meatballs and all that fun stuff. But I mean, I know he wants to be a head coach again, and I think he deserves it. So there you go. We are scrolling.
You're at 7:36.
See, Nick, that's why you are an Emmy-winning producer.
Well, you got 10 minutes with this Emmy-winning producer, and then I'm out of here. So,
Tatum, will the Chiefs draft a more explosive running back this year's upcoming draft in 2025?
That's the question I ask myself every year.
That is what Nick
my
wants.
answer is I hope so.
That is what Nick wants. Yeah, I mean, I don't really get a feel for how the Chiefs kind of view the running back situation and draft process. That's the question that absolutely needs to be asked of Brett Veach about how he views it now, because I think his views have probably evolved over the last few years and since the Clyde deal. But yes, I think that is absolutely one piece that would absolutely benefit this team, is having a explosive running back. Julia Gulia, when did the cornerback room become so thin, or is it? And are we asking too much of Kareem Hunt, or is this just part of the plan?
Cornerback wise, it's thin because guys keep getting injured. So that's why you have as much depth as you do, and they're trying their best to be able to coach them up and get them out there on the football field. And in terms of Kareem Hunt, he's part of what's able to make him sustainable and successful right now with what their offensive game plan is. I think they need to kind of throttle back on some of the touches and give some of those to Steele and P. Ryan. And if and when Pacheco comes back, then I would give Pacheco half those touches and everything. But Pacheco's not there right now, so they don't have that option.
Yeah, I mean, I do think they're asking a lot of Kareem Hunt right now, especially from the layoff and how much of a workload that they are giving him. I mean, I asked Andy Reid about it on Monday, and it didn't sound like he's too concerned about it, Nick, that needs to dial back or anything. But nope. I do get the sense that they want him to get some work now, because I think they obviously know that at some point in the future, when Pacheco comes back, he's going to get a little bit less work. And it seems like their philosophy is work him now, because later on he might have some games where he doesn't have as many touches. We'll see. But and I mean, the Chiefs, they've been worried about the cornerback room for a long time. I mean, Chris Roland Wallace has at least been a nice piece that's come out of nowhere and given them some depth that they weren't expecting. But they went into the season not knowing what they were going to have, because Jalen Watson was hurt in the offseason. Najee Johnson was hurt coming in off the season. Joshua Williams has been just radically inconsistent for 3 years now. So they didn't really know what they had, and they were trying to replace L'Jarius Sneed. And I will say, my one other quick lightning round observation, we're grading on a curve. We're grading on a curve, Nick, because we're talking about the deficiencies at that cornerback spot. It's nowhere where this was 5 or 6 years ago. It's a much better cornerback room than it was then.
I agree, and I love your definition of lightning round. Leisurely stroll round is what it is.
Okay, since you brought up Tooney the left tackle theory, does that mean that KC would trust C.J. Hansen at left guard more than Driscoll at left tackle?
No, it doesn't mean that in any way, shape, or form. And Hansen wouldn't be the one starting. It'd be Hunter Norzad, more than likely, or Wanye Morris.
Or Mike Caliendo.
Or Caliendo. I totally forgot about him. How dare I forget about the player rep? Oops. All right, next one you got 739, John P.
Oh, I saw Luttrell's too.
Yep, there's that one too.
What percentage do you give it that we see Hollywood this season?
I'm again, unless it's lottery numbers, I don't know.
I mean, 99%. I mean, Chiefs seem to be pretty comfortable that he's coming back. So I will allow for the possibility that, hey, there can always be a setback and things go wrong. But Chiefs seem to be very, very confident that he is returning this season. So, John P., any guesses on why Deontay Johnson went to Baltimore for a bag of peanuts?
Yeah, the same reason the Steelers were able to wanted to get rid of him for, a third-round pick? I think Panthers had to give him a third-round pick for Johnson. And in between the time of him being a third-round pick, He is now went for a 6th round. Was it 5th or 6th? He went for 5th, right?
But 5th with the 6th going back.
Okay, so he's not value within.
He was traded for like 20 spots on day 3.
Okay, so I got a feeling that they didn't get what they thought they were getting, and they were okay to get that out of their locker room. And in terms of the Ravens, here's a reality check. The Ravens need pass rush. The Ravens need cornerbacks. They've given up more than 93 points in the fourth quarter this season. They have a lot of struggles on defense. They are not the defense that they were last year, not even in the same realm of it. I can't remember. There might be 20. Last I looked, they were like 29th in passing defense, and maybe even lower now. I'm not going to look it up so we can get to the other part. But, yeah, Ravens need defense, and the Chiefs were able to get a speed rusher before the Ravens could.
Yeah, got to co-sign Deontay Johnson. I don't think was ever on the Chiefs list because I don't think that they've had a lot of confidence of him coming into the locker room and being a positive impact. Dez, if KC beats Buffalo and Houston, then the number 1 seed is pretty much locked up considering the rest of the schedule.
Take it week by week. Because they're going to play the Broncos. Broncos are going to be tougher on defense than people give them credit for. And then they got to worry about the Bills. Texans, we'll see, because the Texans have a really tough stretch here, more so than people realize. Steelers got an even tougher stretch here. So, I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, the thing is that if you give the Chiefs those, and that's 9 wins right there. I mean, I think you would still have to find, for anybody else to catch the Chiefs, bare minimum, you'd have to find 3 or 4 more losses for the Chiefs. And I mean, you would give those 2 wins to them. I don't know if I can just find 3 or 4 more losses, but your mileage may vary, Nick.
I like when my mileage varies. Baltimore, 25th in total defense. They are 32nd now against the pass.
Yeah, that's not ideal. No.
But let's hear nationally how they're so amazing. They're so amazing on offense. They're so good. Because they can't stop anybody. They're like the 2018 Chiefs.
We are getting to the point where if we have discussed some of these questions earlier, I'm kind of skipping by them, folks.
What?
So apologize if I skip your question. Brenda, can the Chiefs lose to somebody besides the Bills? Brenda, you don't want the Chiefs to lose to anybody, do you?
I don't know. It sounds like only Brenda can answer that question.
But I mean, come on. I mean, the Chiefs losing at Buffalo is just, and then of course beating Buffalo in the postseason is just kind of what happens.
Hey Matt, 747 Ambassador, 724. Yeah. Okay, we'll answer Brenda's and then we can go to that.
Yeah, go with what's the trap game on the schedule?
A trap game means you're overlooking somebody. I think the Chiefs are so business-like this year after what happened with the Raiders last year. I don't think they overlook anybody, and I think the coaching staff, like you and I chatted about, the Panthers won. I don't even think the Panthers won. The Panthers team is so bad and so dysfunctional that even if it was a trap game, I don't think the Panthers would be able to put it all together. That's where it's at. So as long as the Chiefs take the business approach and respect each opponent, execute the way they need to get better, there is no trap game.
I mean, the only game the rest of the way that I could see the Chiefs losing that they shouldn't lose, I mean, it is Carolina, because I mean, I think anybody else on the schedule could beat the Chiefs, so I don't feel like anything else is a trap game. I mean, that's the only one that I think that the Chiefs should 100% win. So anybody else on the schedule? I mean, it's the NFL. I mean, there's enough parity and the Chiefs' schedule, frankly, is tough enough that I think anybody can beat them. But Carolina has no business beating the Chiefs. What time did you say? Because I am trying to look for.
It's more of a statement than a question. It's 7:47. Nick,
you seem nice on here.
I don't know if they're being serious or sarcastic. Because people can read whatever they want on Twitter, however they want. Like they can think, oh, that like people. It's like emails. You read it however you want. So you don't know somebody's personality and everything. And honestly, I don't respond on Twitter as much as I used to, because it goes one of 3 ways. So like whenever I'm breaking down something, a play or happens or anything, I'll get like 10 to 15 responses of people adding on their breakdowns on top of it. So then, so then I get my mentions with a whole bunch of that I'm like, I just hit mute this conversation now because like I said what I wanted to on it, what I noticed, and I'm moving on with my life. I don't need all these alerts and everything. I'm just being honest. And then because you and I, man, like for example, like we get a couple, people don't realize we get a couple hundred alerts on every single thing that happens. Like, so when that trade happened, like my brother's like, did you see the question I put there on? I was like, here, look at my notifications during that time. He's like, that's a lot. And I was like, yeah, that's what happens to your little brother whenever Chiefs news happens.
Now I can't find it, Nick, though, because I know you're going to want to leave. But I meant to bring this up earlier, and I skipped over it. We had a question about your shirt again because everybody wants to know what your shirt says, and I know you've seen it before and shown it.
State of mind. Hey, I didn't tell you this, but whenever we were on the Annie Reid Zoom yesterday, my shirt that I was wearing at the time. But I made sure that the Chiefs PR and everybody wouldn't be able to see all of it, and Coach Reid wouldn't either when we were on that Zoom. It said reading the room at a 5th grade level. Had a whole bunch of stars on it.
Well, the fact that you and Creed Humphrey have the one shirt that you wear every game day, I think is rather remarkable. It's a different shirt, obviously, but
yeah, well, the Chiefs are undefeated, so I got to do my part.
So you and Creed Humphrey will continue to wear your shirt, your game day shirts.
I wouldn't wear that if I was out of if I was actually covering the game, I wouldn't wear that. But I wore that, and they haven't lost since then. So I just have to keep doing it until they lose, and I can be free again.
But the fact that Creed wears that shirt and just puts a new label over it every week with the team name that week is just indicative of he's a really funny dude.
All right, I'll give you one final question, and then I gotta go. I really do have to go at that point.
Do you have any requests? What the question is?
No, I have absolutely not. Minus the one about the Bucs, because I haven't watched them yet, so we would waste everybody's time with that.
The question I was tempted to ask you, if I can find it now, because of course I always lose track of these things. What's going to be like the fact that Brian had a little graphic and everything there for Lightning Round. I should start having a little graphic for Lightning Round.
Yeah, but you got to actually practice Lightning Round. You can't just say Lightning Round.
There is that. We both have a tendency to sometimes get off on Lightning Round. Why can't I find it? I know what the question was. It was going to be, hey, if the Jets and the Bengals go into fire sale mode, anybody you want from the Jets or the Bengals?
The Bengals aren't going to trade anybody to the Chiefs. Absolutely nobody. They will trade nobody to the Chiefs in any way, shape, or form. If that happens, then Hades is frozen over. I think they're too prideful to try to do that and let them go on to actually win a ring, because then the Cincinnati fan base will say, oh, see, look, yeah, such and such went on and won a ring because they left us to go to Kansas City. So I don't think the Bengals want to put themselves in that situation, and I don't think that the Jets can admit a fire sale. They cannot, because that GM, Joe Douglas's job is on the line. So even though that thing is a dumpster fire and everybody outside the building sees that it's a dumpster fire, they have to keep pretending that, like that meme where that dog's sitting with all the fire around him. He's like, everything's fine. Everything is fine. Even though the room's like burning around him. So that's how Joe Douglas is going to have to be until they play a game called It's Been Fun, but let's not do this whole paycheck thing anymore.
Once again, play the game of you not being here anymore.
That's going to happen.
There you go. Well, Nick, thank you very much as always for your time. Appreciate you. I'll stick around for a little bit more, so I'll try and lightning round myself out of here.
All right. Good luck to you in your show business career. Bye.
Bye, Nick. Appreciate Nick always coming by and dropping with his knowledge. He is absolutely, and it cracks me up that he has a reputation of either being snarky on Twitter and then nice here, or nice on Twitter and snarky here, because Nick is frankly one of the just nicest dudes in the entire world. So nicest thing you can do to Nick is just tell him that he's a nice dude, because he doesn't get told that enough. Martine, I'm glad you brought this up about prayers and condolences to Traveris Ward and his wife after losing their baby daughter. In case you haven't heard, yes, their daughter had Down syndrome, was also born with holes in her heart, and unfortunately succumbed to the health problems associated with the heart today. I can't even imagine what that family must be going through. Traveris was always incredibly generous with his time, in the Kansas City locker room. He, to me, was and is just one of the most interesting people to play the cornerback spot, because usually, and to be as good as Traveris is at that spot, usually you have to have a little bit of an ego and diva, and he certainly had a self-confidence in himself, but at the same time, he was simply just one of the quietest people in the locker room. Didn't have that big outrageous personality, and he also had a self-criticalness to him. I mean, he didn't take himself too seriously. I remember the first time I ever met him, because his cornerback coach at Middle Tennessee State had reached out to me when the Chiefs had made a trade to acquire him from Dallas, and told me a little bit about him. And the first time I met him in the locker room and walked over to him and everything and introduced myself, and I said that I had talked to his coach and from college, and he just lit up with a big smile, and you could just tell. I mean, he just had a different way about him, and I was very glad to see just the way that he developed as a player that he did, and to get the contract that he got in with the 49ers. Yes, absolute prayers and condolences to Traveris and his wife. That's incredibly tragic to lose your daughter. No good way for me to transition from that, but just all the best to Traveris and his family. Choro, when will we hear more about Mike Dana? Is he going to be out for an extended period? No, we haven't talked about this yet, Choro, so glad you brought it up. It certainly seems like it's going to be fairly close. The pec injury doesn't seem like it was a severe strain of any sort. The Chiefs have been fairly cautious with it. Didn't require any fixing or anything like that. I haven't had an exact timetable. Just what I've been told is just kind of week to week at this point for Dana. I could certainly see him possibly being back this week. I think we'll get a pretty good indication on Thursday. If he's practicing on Thursday, I think there's a chance that he could play this week. Wouldn't be surprised if they held him off. And once again, I mean, it also wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs were just fairly cautious with a lot of players, and maybe circling that Buffalo game as a week. I know that's the week that Juju is probably going to be expected back. Maybe with Dana the same thing, but once again, if the Chiefs are, once again, like I said, they're trying to build their rotations for January and February and for the postseason. So if Dana, being on the bench for a couple of more games, letting that pec rest up, and it means some other guys getting more reps, especially Felix, I think the Chiefs are okay with that. So, and certainly with Joshua Uche coming in, they'd like for him to get some reps as well. So if Mike Dana didn't come back for the next couple of weeks and they were able to give both those players more work, I think the Chiefs are okay with that. Once again, they're trying to build towards really the middle of January. I mean, everything that they're doing is about making sure that they're ready for that time of year, and that's just the approach that they're making. Let's see where we want to go next. I probably should go back and see if I missed some other questions, but I apologize for that. Mango, Dan Graziano said like a month ago that the Chiefs quite like Jonathan Jones from the Patriots. He's 31, but do you think the Chiefs could move him for a 1-year rental? I understand that they do like Jones as well. The age is a little bit of a concern. I think honestly, running back, they seem to be pretty comfortable right now, especially because they've got Kareem. When they get Pacheco back, they're going to have to do something because they've got 4 running backs on the roster already. I mean, 5 will be too many. So naturally, you love to keep some of these guys around for depth purposes. You'd love to be able to get a running back or 2 onto the practice squad because it can be an active attrition. It's always even possible that by the time Pacheco comes back, that even he is replacement of depth for somebody else. I mean, that's just the way that position goes. I don't. I would put it pretty low that I think the Chiefs would make that move once they got Kareem. I think that kind of shut off any other discussions about the running back spot. If Kareem wasn't here, Jonathan Jones might be a distinct possibility, but I think Kareem coming back, you're really kind of close the door on a lot of those. Yes, I know I'm terrible with, you know what? And I'm saying this even though Nick's not here, and I would say it to him. I was almost getting ready to say it to him when he was here. Me being the problem on the 1 minute answers is I'll gladly accept the majority of the problem. Nick can't answer a question in 1 minute either most of the time, unless it's just a question that he's being very dismissive about, frankly. So that's all I have to say. I mean, and I say that with a great deal of love. Is Trey White realistic? And I want to say no, because I looked this up earlier and walked away from it saying no, but I'm trying to remember. Oh, I know why. Financially realistic? Yes, because that contract is not too bad. What was it? The base salary this year for Trey White is 1.5. There's some roster bonuses, would not be a bad deal. Problem is perennially injured. I mean, just one injury after another. He's coming back from, it was an Achilles last year. So, I mean, yeah, to me, no, he's not 100%. That's one of the reasons why he's available, frankly, because, the Rams are making some players available, some not. Some of the ones that are available got a really high price on them. Trey White is cheap because of the contract, but also because he's just not Trey White. So bring back Marcus Peters. I mean, I was surprised when the Chiefs brought back Kareem. I mean, it wasn't like, just knock me over with a feather surprised, but I was surprised. Marcus coming back would be a knock me over with a feather. So I don't think that's happening. I'm not even sure if it's serious, Duncan, but I would, as in the immortal words of Chevy Chase, I would not be more surprised than if I woke up tomorrow morning with my face sewn to the carpet than if the Chiefs brought back Marcus Peters. Okay, Charo, what candies are you handing? I wish Nick was here for this because I don't know what Nick's Halloween candy would have been. I can tell you, we're kind of fuddy-duddies. We haven't handed out Halloween candy in a long time. So part of it's because I feel like I'm not home on Halloween very often, or if I am, I'm working on a deadline and everything. So that's usually why I kind of skip Halloween. But if I did, majority of it would be Reese's. That's the best candy in the world. I'm not going to treat anybody poorly. I would certainly, and I'm not, I wanted to be a decent amount. I'll give away fun size candy, but you're going to get a good handful. So I'm not going to be cheap out on it, but Reese's, the Hershey's mix, all those are good. I'm not going to go, Tootsie Roll, anything like that. I hate, some things I hate. I hate Smarties and Skittles and all of that, but I would do M&Ms. I would do any of the Hershey products. I would do anything Reese's. And like I said, the majority of my candy that I hand out would absolutely be Reese's. So, and I wish I had the budget if I was doing Halloween candy electoral to do full size. I was getting ready to say I don't want to be too cheap or anything, but and I guess I should be more like my mom. My mom traveled a lot when I was a kid, and so she would usually put out just a giant bucket with candy before she left, or ask one of the neighbors to put it out. And of course, all the kids knew to come by because my mom was really good with the candy. Then they took it all, and eventually, it wasn't, she did get really upset because one year somebody soaped our garage windows with thanks for the candy. Well, you got really good candy and then you soaped the windows and I was the one that had to clean it up. So I wasn't a big fan of that. So no, we're not starting any rumors that Nick or myself are giving out full size candy, though. That is not happening. Yeah, Nikki. I mean, yeah. What happened with Elway is the Baltimore Colts drafted him, and yes, he did refuse to sign with them, and that's what precipitated the trade from Baltimore to the Broncos. But it was a trade. I mean, it was still through the draft process. So yeah, I mean, it's. And obviously, you had I'm trying to remember the name of the Ohio State running back who tried to fight the NCAA rule about having to be out of high school for 3 years before you're eligible for the draft. But like Nick said, I mean, I'm not aware of any good way that a high caliber player can escape, except like Nick said, and you go play in another league. But I think even, in the NFL, I think you have to go through the draft process one time, being a draft eligible player, because, there have been some players that I can think of that have played, for a year or two in the Canadian league, but they had to be drafted, and, I think there's an exception. I mean, as far as, I guess it's a number of years that you play in the CFL before you can then become a free agent, because I think Warren Moon became a free agent that way. But I think he also went through the draft process. So when he came back, he would have been just an NFL free agent because he had gone through the draft process once before. So skipping the draft, NFL does not make it easy. Junkin, would Taylor Swift join the team if they visit the White House? I would assume not, because I think that would just create too much of a security nightmare, and she didn't last year, so I don't think she would do it again. So, Thomas, will the Chiefs pick up a cornerback? If they could wave a magic wand, they would love to. I'm just not sure they're going to be able to find one that they want. Because what they want as a corner is obviously they want somebody who they think can play in Spagnuolo's system. They want somebody affordable, so it's not somebody with a big contract. It would need to be vet minimum or not much more than that. Needs to be somebody, I want to say relatively young. I don't think they would want to be bringing anybody in over 30, but hey, if that's all that's available and they think it's somebody who can help them, maybe. Don't want to give up a high draft pick. They wouldn't want to give up a first, second, or a third. It would have to be a day 3 pick. But the cost, the salary cap hit's the biggest thing. It would have to be somebody who's very, very affordable. So finding somebody good enough for this team and where they are right now, that's affordable, that they think can pick up Spag's system, that's a pretty slim pool of players. So that's why I think it's going to be difficult. If they could find a player, if someone becomes available in the next 6 days, I think they would be all over it. Just not sure that is going to happen. Thomas, I'll be honest. I mean, based on what the return was for Deontay Johnson going from Carolina to the Ravens, I don't know if there was another team in the market for Deontay Johnson. I mean, the return was so little that it was virtually giving this player away. So I really got to believe that, that this was the only team that was interested, and maybe the Ravens weren't even that interested. I don't know what his role is going to be. I mean, he might end up just being their 4th or 5th receiver and maybe just playing a little bit. Who knows? But I got to assume that it's going to. I can't imagine that based on that return that there was even another team in the market, or because even if it was, honestly, based on the 5th and the 6th round swap, even a straight 7th would have been a better deal than that. So I got to believe that just nobody else was interested. And I don't think it was about keeping it from another team. I don't think, if the Chiefs wanted to match that deal, they could have beaten it very, very easily. I just think they had no interest in dealing with that. So Didn't Spags just sign a contract, Martine? I believe you are right. I mean, hey, you can retire anytime you want to, and you can take a job in the NFL that's a raise and a promotion. Promotion more specifically. I said raise, really promotion. You can take those despite a contract. I mean, anytime. I mean, there's an out for coaches, for that. So yeah, I mean, if a head coaching job came up for Spags, having recently signed an extension with the Chiefs wouldn't prevent him from being able to do that. Brian, I assume you're talking about a offensive coordinator. Would you rather have John Gruden or Matt Nagy? I mean, I suppose it's always possible that Gruden could come in. I don't know. I don't know if Andy would want that, even though I know he's good friends with John and everything. I think Gruden might be a bit too much voltage in that position, and I'm sure Gruden would prefer to be an offensive coordinator, or would rather be a head coach than an offensive coordinator. So maybe he wouldn't even take the job. I don't know. I mean, if Matt Nagy left and it became available, let's face it, Matt Nagy's not getting fired. That's not on the table. So if Matt left, would John be interested? I'm sure he would. It's Patrick Mahomes. There'd be 500 offensive coordinators that'd be interested in that. But I don't know. I think Gruden might be a little bit too much of a distraction for Andy Reid as an offensive coordinator, if that's where you were going with that. What do you think of CRW's performance last game? I saw him getting numerous catches versus him, yet he looked like he had tight coverage on them. Yeah, Infopocalypse, I did not go back and watch his snaps specifically. I should do that, just run through them and see that when he was in coverage, because I got, at least live, that was my impression as well. I mean, I thought he had actually he had really good coverage in a couple of places. He had the interception last week against the 49ers. That was, really impressive. So I think it's been good. And once again, I mean, playing him in a specific role that he's comfortable with and giving him limited snaps is probably the best way to handle. Maybe he's ready and able to take on something else. I mean, if Josh Williams doesn't play well, somebody else is going to get a chance. And honestly, on the depth chart wise, right now, I mean, Chris Roland Wallace would be the next guy up. I think he would be ahead of Keith Taylor in the rotation. Might even be a question about, whether they would just play Chamari Connor a little bit more at corner. I mean, he is still technically a safety, but he's obviously, pretty comfortable with that. I just don't think that they would want to put him a lot outside, but they do like playing Chris Roland Wallace. I mean, they do kind of see him right now as being a slot guy, that he's, maybe better there for them. Even though, I mean, he can play just about anywhere. I mean, he's one of those guys that they're really comfortable playing in multiple spots. So no, I think he's played pretty well. I have not seen him really getting beat specifically. And I thought he had some pretty tight coverage. Liesel Waters, will Chris Jones meet his goal to be Defensive Player of the Year? I think the Chiefs and Chris are going to do everything that they can to try and make that happen. The crazy thing is that I think that Chris is actually, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, because I think that Chris has always played team ball, but I think he's playing his best team ball of his career this year. I think he's better against the run this year than maybe he's ever been. He's still an effective pass rusher. He doesn't have the sacks right now. He doesn't have the numbers. And I know that's his concern, because he gets it. He knows that Player of the Year usually has big sack totals, but there's going to be a campaign for Chris Jones to be Defensive Player of the Year. And it's not just because he wants to win it. It's because he's deserving it. His work, what he's doing. I mean, so much of the Chiefs being so good against the run game is the fact that just Chris Jones is absolutely wrecking offensive lines every single snap. This is as close to, I think, Aaron Donald as Chris Jones has ever played. it's been very, very impressive. And like I said, I mean, I think he's always played team ball. I just think that he's playing better team ball now than he's ever has before. And I think he deserves to be in the conversation. And just whether or not that maybe Chiefs PR team can get him into the conversation, whether Chris can talk himself into the conversation. And I mean, unfortunately, because it's just the way these things work, he's going to have the sack totals, I think, to get him into the conversation. See, Ryan, that's a better question for Nick. I mean, I that whole thing about thinking about the Roman Empire, I gotta say, I never think about the Roman Empire unless I'm playing Civilization 6 and the Roman Empire is in the game. So I'm not one of those peeps that thinks about the Roman Empire every single day. So Nick probably does, because he has that T-shirt and he has to think about whether or not he's going to wear that T-shirt every day. And you like Nick much better on YouTube. Nick's a good dude on Twitter too, I swear. There's things that he says every once in a while, because I know the tone of voice in which Nick is saying them about on Twitter, and I know the tone in which he is saying them, and it makes me laugh, because I know that he's either joking or he's being sarcastic or he's just being silly, and people take him way too seriously. So Mango, anyone on the Chiefs roster you think could be traded out of Kansas City? Interesting question. I haven't really been asked that. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that the Chiefs are looking to do anything like that. I don't think that, I mean, player for player trades in the NFL are so rare that I don't think it would be a case of them at this point trading a player for somebody that they want. And right now, I mean, their 53 is pretty well, stacked as far as, guys that they like. So it's not like they're trying to get rid of anybody that's on their 53. So I doubt it. I don't think there's anybody that they would be looking to put on the block to trade out. I mean, like I said, I think it would only be if they're not in the position where they're trading anybody for a pick. That's not where their thought process is. It would only be because Mango, I'm reading your next comment where you were talking about I was getting Jones confused with one of the Patriots running backs. I apologize about that. Yeah, I mean they do like Jonathan Jones, and he's you're right. Thank you for correcting me. I was getting my names mixed up. That's a possibility, and let me check and see where his number is. What's going on there? Oops. And yeah, sorry about getting my names crossed up. I'm terrible with names, folks. I admit it. I'm absolutely terrible. Yeah, the tough part with him a little bit is that he's got an $8 million base. He's also got $1 million in roster bonuses this year likely to be earned. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible, but the Chiefs would have to free up more cap space. And I think that, the interest in Jones would have been more appropriate before they made some other moves. But I think with the way that they're set right now, I think that's probably closed the door a little bit on Jonathan Jones. Favorite movies? Oh man, I wish Nick was here for this one too. You have to ask the Luttrell again next week. So I can try and get it in before Nick takes off. I mean, I guess I should just say Star Wars and all Star Wars films. I mean, obviously the original trilogy is the best. I think that the prequels are better than 7, 8, and 9. Favorite non-Star Wars film? I mean, I know that it's a target of a lot of maybe I won't say wokeness. I just did say wokeness, so I hate that. But maybe for appropriateness, it is not. Some people think it has aged well, but I love Groundhog Day. Just one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, that's probably my favorite non-Star Wars movie. So I guess I'm not an art film buff. I mean, there's plenty of really good, Oscar-winning films that I enjoy, but that's my favorite. Justin Reed. Justin Reed's not going anywhere, folks, because I mean he's too important to this defense. So, Brian, you're not the only one that wants Luther Burden. Even with the fact that his numbers haven't been great at Mizzou this year, I still think he's going to be top 15 pick, probably easily. I mean, maybe he slips to the top 20s because of the down year, but I figure he's probably going to just test like crazy at the combine. So unless his combine, doesn't come up and match what we see on the field, maybe he could fall. I've seen Luther Burden in Kansas City. Man, I think that would be incredible. I just don't think there's any way that he's going to fall low enough for the Chiefs to get him, unfortunately. But it was Montreal, Washington getting elevated again this week, or will the Remigio Revolution finally be treated? Good question, Mango. Washington didn't get as many reps as I thought that he might on kick return. They did have some other options in there too, but we'll see. I mean, they could, until Juju gets back, obviously, they've been using Hardman a little bit more, and that's on offense. And I didn't think they backed off Hardman at all on special teams, which is one of the things that I expected them to do with him getting more offensive reps. So we'll see. I mean, it could be another Montreal Washington week just to get him out there on special teams, especially as a returner. I would like to see Remigio as a returner. I mean, I know there's a possibility the Chiefs are still holding that near fumble. Well, was a fumble. I got overturned in the preseason. But I would like to see Remigio. I know they view him more as a punt returner than a kick returner. So, they don't see him as multi-versatile, or excuse me, as a more. I mean, they just don't see him as versatile enough to be a return specialist. But I would be interested in seeing him. And I think he's a good wide receiver talent too. So I'd like to see him. And Elks Pride, I just saw this. I apologize. It's only 3 minutes ago, so I'm not too far late there. But thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Appreciate you enjoying the show out in Los Angeles. That is very kind to hear. Thank you very much. And hey, Elks, you ever got a question? Fire away. Glad to answer whatever you got. Appreciate the super chat there, my friend. Haven't been out to LA in a while, so it's been. I don't think I actually been out to Los Angeles since before the pandemic. So I haven't been traveling on the road games as much. And when I do, LA usually gets skipped because it's a little bit pricey. But would love to get out. I need to get out there because I absolutely want to cover a game in SoFi because I hear it's just absolutely incredible. The Jets have Brandon Eccles on the trade block. Any interest from the Chiefs? As always, let me check his contract situation because that's going to be the magic number, Mango. I gotta think the top of my head that his has got to be pretty manageable. Yeah, I mean 1.1 million. That's not a problem at all. I don't know if the Chiefs would be interested. I don't know if they would view him as a dramatic upgrade from what they've got. And look, I mean, he's been a part-time player. I don't know. I mean, he's got a couple of interceptions this year, so obviously, and he's been a good ball hawk. That's him, but it really hasn't kind of cracked through in the Jets, and he's been kind of taking steps backwards, with the Jets in the last couple of years. So might be good for a change of scenery type player, but I mean, Chiefs are in a kind of tough spot because I think that they, like I said, I think they would like to have a player who could come in and legitimately compete for starting snaps, but that might be on the fence for me. I mean, they might be interested. I mean, it would certainly be doable, Mango. I'm just not sold that they would be interested, but I don't know. I'll have to poke around, Mango, and see if there's any possibility. I would say that Since I've been told that right now there aren't any corners on the market that the Chiefs are interested in, I would assume that that means that they're not interested in Eccles. So I think there's just more of a likely that be a situation where somebody that comes on the market in the next week would have to be somebody that the Chiefs might get interested in. I mean, I can say Luttrell from at least my knowledge of both of them, and I had a lot of at least secondhand knowledge of DGB because he went to my high school in Springfield, Missouri, so I knew a lot about DGB and learned even more afterwards about the whole experience. And I can safely say I think that Luther is in a better position than DGB was. DGB was probably always going to end up. He was headed on the wrong path for a long time, and I don't think that Luther is in that situation. So I'm hoping not. But DGB had some challenges that I wish he hadn't gone on the wrong path, but he did. So let's cross our fingers on that one, Luttrell. Hey, Cornell Powell's back, baby. I'm still amazed that he's never really gotten much of a chance in Kansas City. He's had some moments at times, Choro. I mean, you never know. It could happen. I don't think it's going to, but it could happen. I mean, the really tough challenge for Cornell has just been that he's not a return specialist. So that's not much of, it's really kind of limits you as being, one of the fifth, sixth, seventh receivers. Is, you got to be a special teams player, and he could be a gunner. But I think, when the Chiefs with those late in the spot wide receivers, they like them to be able to be returners, and that's not really his skill set. But I tell you what, Cornell could learn a lot from playing with DeAndre Hopkins. So let's see what happens. I am not convinced that the Dolphins will have a fire sale because I think that, like Nick said, I think they're just one of those teams that they have to try and win and have to try and compete. I think they are falling out of it. And if Tua does get shut down, they probably should have a fire sale soon. But I'm not sold there's anybody in Miami that the Chiefs would be, interested in. I mean, obviously Tyreek is not coming back. So, I don't know. There's nobody that jumps off to me that, from Miami that the Chiefs would necessarily be 100% in the market for. I was going to say something, that I was going to, because Nikki, there you go. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, Nikki, I'm probably going to, with my honesty, draw a lot of complaints here and a lot of criticism, but I do not like Lord of the Rings. I never got into the movies. I didn't like the book. I never could finish it. I thought it was boring. So I realize I'm going to lose a lot of respect and cool points there, but I am a huge Star Wars nerd. Now I am angry at Disney because I do not care for the current timeline. I don't care for them throwing out the old expanded universe and, having a distinction between legends and canon. I don't like that. So I've been boycotting all of the new stuff, all the expanded universe stuff, and since they banished all the old stuff and all my dozens and dozens of books and comics to legend status. So, but yes, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, and I don't like Lord of the Rings. So sorry. Gina, with a little bit different variation on the Wanya Morris question, and helping him out Sunday against Crosby. What are your thoughts on what the Chiefs will do? Will he get more help from him over there? I mean, they have been helping him out a little bit, probably not as much as people would like to see. And like I said, I mean, I think that some of his problems, they're not all his fault. I think sometimes, like I said, that Mahomes has kind of walked himself into some pressure at times, especially just drifting a little bit too deep. I'm not saying that's routine problem, but I saw it a couple of times on Sunday. And, and honestly, I mean, this is going to sound funny. Aside from the holding calls against Crosby, when the few times that he did end up against Crosby, he had had some good snaps. So it was give and take. I mean, let's say it seemed like a lot of the snaps against Crosby were either decent or disastrous. And, so, and honestly, Chiefs probably a little bit fortunate that Crosby, lined up against Juwan so much of the day. That surprised me. I thought that for sure that they would put Crosby on Wanye a lot more than they did. But if the Chiefs, the last couple of games, what they've been trying to do is to kind of keep their edge rushers on the outside and kind of, set up a pocket that allows Mahomes that as long as he doesn't drop too far deep into it, that he's able to step up into it, kind of rely on the interior to kind of, keep things clean up front. And so that if there is a lane for him to escape, it's up front, and it's either going around the guards and between the tackles, or if there's a spot, even in between the guard and the center. And really the only thing that they've had some problems with is, occasionally, I think still with the pec injury, Tooney's had some times when he's kind of gotten walked back into Mahomes. I mean, and once again, it's not happening all the time, but it's happening just enough that, hey, it's going to disrupt a couple of plays here and there. So it's not always Wanye that's having some problems, but, I think hey, go for KC forever. I mean, yeah, be glad that the Chiefs don't face Crosby every week. I mean, they did a good job against him, other than the holding calls against the Raiders. And hey, if the Raiders want to trade Max Crosby out of the AFC West, I don't think the Chiefs would have any trouble with that. It's just going to be unfortunate they couldn't afford him. Yeah, and Bill, as far as possibly signing a cornerback, not much. I mean, the free agent, talent that's out there. I mean, there's really, my last look at it. I mean, it's a lot of players who are either injured, too old, doesn't fit the scheme, doesn't fit the system. I mean, no real good solutions. I mean, the Chiefs have kind of taken some chances on some young guys. I mean, they've brought back Eric Scott. I mean, they've gone through and looked at a couple of younger players to see if there's anybody that would kind of fit what they do. But again, I mean, it hasn't really been, there just hasn't been a good match for them as far as finding anybody. And they have been looking against some young guys, but the young guys are more depth at the very, very end. I mean, that's for your fifth and sixth corners. They'd in the situation that they're in right now, without Jalen and with Najee, at least out in the short term with the concussion, they'd love to have somebody that could actually start, at least in the spot start role. And I mean, that player is just not available, whether it's free agent market or the free agent market, trade market, free agent, whichever way. So, wish I had a better answer for you there. So, I'm going back through, just seeing if there's anything else that I missed, and I'll come back and circle back for one more last call if anybody else has some questions. I probably have missed some. I apologize for that. A lot of comments tonight. Love it. You appreciate it. Like I always try to say, I love the community that you all have built here. And I say you all because it's not me. I mean, you're in the comment section. You're the ones engaging with yourselves. I'm just watching for the most part. And I need to do a better job engaging with all of you afterwards and going back in. I need to do a much better job of that. I do read the comments that you all post on the YouTube videos. I need to do a better job of making sure to answer the questions in there. Because once again, if you have any questions that I didn't answer tonight, feel free to post them on the YouTube page. I promise, pinky promise this week that I will get in there and answer them this week. So I'm looking through and seeing a lot of comments about pizza. I mean, Duncan, I'm going to apologize. Blue cheese. Oh no, I think you're saying it's not. Oh no, you're saying you like fungus and mold. Yeah, blue cheese is like my least favorite cheese in the world. I cannot stand it. So, and I don't like mushrooms. Probably kind of the same kind of reason. It's just a texture thing for me. So I have often said that if God intended for us to eat fruits and vegetables on our pizza, he would not have invented salads. So that's where fruit belongs. That's where vegetables belong. Is it a fruit salad? Just a regular salad? Doesn't belong on my pizza. So I'm definitely a Pepperoni's my favorite. I will eat a pizza with as many meats on it as you want to put. The Minsky's Joe's Kansas City Pizza is pretty darn good. They've got they also I'm trying. Oh, it's the Prime Cut at Minsky's is a really good pizza. Here's a question that I missed earlier. Finding it from Chuck. Since Rashid, Xavier, and Sky are the only wide receivers under contract in 25, would you anticipate Veach to completely renovate the room or re-sign a bunch of the guys there now? I think when healthy, the Chiefs would absolutely be interested in another year with Hollywood Brown. I mean, they really liked what they saw during the offseason. Obviously, we'll probably get to see a little bit of Hollywood at the end of this year. Certainly in the postseason, I think you're going to see Hollywood. So there's some experience there. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I get the sense that, yes, the Chiefs would absolutely be interested in trying to keep him. The nice thing, at least, about Hollywood is that with him missing much of the season, you could sign a very lucrative, incentive-laden contract with him that none of it's going to be likely to be earned because his numbers for the season are going to be pretty low. So it's just a matter of, what the market's going to bear for Hollywood. I mean, if he has a great postseason, really won't matter that he missed the year with the injury. I mean, there'll be some teams interested, but I think the Chiefs will absolutely be one of them. I think, they definitely have liked what they have seen from Hollywood and we'd be interested in seeing him again for another year at the right price. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, I would imagine they would probably be interested there too. I mean, as long as he shows that he's still got it. And from what I've seen, at least in game one, DeAndre Hopkins still has it. So, I mean, I think both of those guys could be back. I mean, they would not be players who would be up for re-signing right now. I mean, they would both be, I would anticipate players who would want to go to March and see what the market bears for both of them and what's out there. And obviously, if they both get a Super Bowl ring this year, that can change what they want and what their expectations are in March. Once you get the ring, you might just want a little bit more down the road. So, we'll see what happens, but I think that there are absolutely, some pieces and, in Juju, I mean, he could fit in there too. I mean, I think the changes, let's put it this way. I think the changes in the wide receiver room will probably be somewhat incremental. I mean, the Chiefs will sign, I think, a free agent or two. Those could absolutely be free agents that they currently have. I mean, if you told me that they signed 2 free agents for next year and next March, and that they signed Juju and some combination of Juju, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hollywood, would not be surprised. If they signed another free agent from outside the organization, wouldn't be surprised. Fully expect them to spend an early draft pick on a receiver. Certainly a day 1 or a day 2 pick on a receiver. So, I mean, like I said, I don't think it's going to be a major renovation, although the fact that Rashid and what's his availability going to be, you've named 3 receivers there. There's an entire possibility that only Xavier is the only one on the week 1 roster next year. So there might need to be a little bit of a revamped receiver room next year. But it just, at the same time, if the Chiefs brought 2 or 3 of their potential free agents this offseason back, I think that wouldn't surprise me. Joshua Uche from Bears 2581. Where do you see him fitting in at first and over time? At first, probably as far as the rotation goes, Bears, I would expect him to be kind of at the end of it. So I'm thinking it would be maybe your 4th or 5th option. Probably at least if he plays this week, and I think there's a reasonable chance that he could play this week. Getting here early enough would have an entire week of practice. I think you're looking at just, for one, a situational edge rusher that's going to be in there probably just in some third down situations, not even maybe every third down, but a handful. He's definitely more of a speed edge rusher. So he's not going to be out there on a lot of first downs or running downs, anything of that nature. So, you are kind of talking about a lot of third down situations with him. But yeah, I would see him at, right now kind of fitting in, probably taking over more of the Malik Herring role. So, maybe with a little bit more workload, but I think he would probably be, like I said, at this point, the 4th option, when Charles Omenihu comes back. And And I say fourth option, I guess with Mike Dana out, yeah, it probably would still be the fourth option. They might even have a Cam Thomas or Malik Herring that plays this week ahead of him. But once the entire group is back, then obviously the way the Chiefs envision their rotation going, once they get to December and into the postseason, it would be Karlaftis and Anna as your starters, and then Minihue, Felix, and Uche probably getting snaps in that order. So that's at least how I would envision, what they're hoping to get done and what they're hoping to kind of build rotation wise by the playoffs. So I am starting to lose my voice a little bit, so I guess I probably should head off into the great beyond here for tonight. Looking at some of the last minute questions. Justin Watson, final year then, Nicole and Juju too. I mean, I do think it will probably be, I'm trying to remember, did Justin Watson sign a 2-year deal or was this just a 1-year deal? Some reason I have in the back of my head that he signed a 2-year deal, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, obviously it's a deal you can walk away from, but did they add in? No, he's not signed for 25. So, and he's going to be 30 next year. So that's kind of a dividing line, with the Chiefs, even if, player that they like, I mean, they're more than likely to let him test the market, and if somebody else wants Justin Watson, I think that they'd probably let him walk. McCole and Juju, I mean, McCole would probably be one of those, kind of the way he was this year, I think, is, he's somebody that the Chiefs would bring back late if they need to for some depth, for some competition. I mean, Juju, depending on how this year finishes out, if he has a good year the rest of the way, is healthy the rest of the way, helps out in the postseason, I could certainly see them trying to keep him, above and beyond. And I think that's, a chance that Juju would stick around, because I think Juju kind of saw, going to New England, sometimes not always greener on the other side. He's really ended up in a good place in Kansas City. And so I think I wouldn't be surprised if he was willing to stay in Kansas City for maybe a little bit less money than, he took when he went to New England. I don't think that money's going to be there. And even necessarily this time around. I mean, he's, a couple of years older than he was the last time he hit free agency. So probably wouldn't be. And I would say that, yeah, I mean, I know I'm talking about Juju and what is his age compared to Justin Watson? Let me pull him up real quick. I want to say he's a year or two younger than Justin, but I could be wrong. Yeah, he's 2 years younger than Justin. So even with the mileage on those knees of Juju, if he finishes out, strong the rest of this season and can stay healthy, I think there's a possibility, hey, Juju could be back at the right price next year. So, Luttrell, what do you think of the chances that Kelsey hangs it up after this year? I still think pretty low. We haven't got to talk to Travis a lot this year, and that's a whole other matter. I could really whine about that, but I'm not going to. But we haven't really had a chance to talk to Travis a lot this year, so I don't really know what his mindset is. I don't know what he's kind of thinking. I don't know if this has been just a harder year for him. I mean, he has told us that he wants to go until the wheels fall off. I don't see the wheels falling off yet, so I'm assuming that means that he would be interested in coming back next year. I think there's still lots of things that he'd like to do, and honestly, I mean, if the Chiefs won a Super Bowl, I think he'd like to try and come back and go for 4. So, I haven't seen any evidence at this point yet that Travis is thinking about walking away after this year. So. We'll see, but I haven't gotten that sense yet. And if he ever talks to us again here pretty soon, I say sarcastically, be great, and we can ask him about that. And I know I know it bothers him, and he hates it when it comes up and everything. But talking about how old he is, and I've told him a couple of years ago, because I used to be one of the people who was writing the Travis Kelce is old stories into the ground. And I was like, hey, Travis, I promise you, I'm not going to ask you how old you are anymore and how I might ask you how you continue to do what you do at this age. But it's still, like I said, it's a legitimate question about how long he wants to play. We just haven't got a chance to ask him lately, and I'm sure he'll love the question. But I'll be interested to see, if his tone has changed any that it was last year and in the past. When he said that, hey, I guess we just ask him if he feels like the wheels are coming off or not. So we will find out. I clicked on it. Oh, there we go. Chiefs Kingdom. Patrick Peterson. Chiefs liked him a while back. I mean, I don't know where Patrick Peterson is, right? I mean, he's a free agent. So, but I don't know. I mean, I think at this point, I don't know that he's retired, but kind of feels like it. I don't know what his situation is. I don't know what his status is. I mean, that would be the only difficult thing about, at that position of a player coming in that, hasn't played since last season. So I don't know. I have not heard what's going on through his mindset. Maybe somebody else, if you know for sure. I haven't seen anything specifically that he's retired, but obviously not anywhere out there right now. So there you go, Brian. Yes, if you're still sticking in here and you haven't hit the like button, actually, I would assume that pretty much everybody here has hit the like button. If you're sticking around this late into it and come back in, or hanging in there at this point in time, I assume you hit the like button. But if you hadn't, please go ahead and hit the like button. Didn't little Johnny Alt, Joe Alt make Crosby look stupid? No, Joe Alt's gonna make a lot of people look stupid. He's a really good player. And so, let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything I've skipped over. Some of the things I probably won't. We've talked a lot about Wanye and Kingsley tonight. So, when I get, you know what, I'm going to do the chapters tonight. So if you didn't get to hear some of those conversations, you can click on the chapters and go back to hear me and Nick talk about Wanye and Kingsley to your heart's content. I think that might, I apologize if I've missed anybody, but I think that sums it up for tonight. Bill had one. Trade for J.C. Horn from the Panthers. That is a name that has come up. And going back into at least this one I have shortcutted because I have gone to J.C. Horn's contract so much the last week or so. Of course, I say that now. It's not there. So where'd my shortcut go? Let me pull him up. My recollection is that it's just too difficult to make that work financially. Because his base. The weird thing with him is that he's got $1 million base. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a weird squirrely per game roster bonus in there. I'd have to go back and look at it because I think the numbers were differing in a couple of sites that I saw because he had a roster bonus and it wasn't entirely clear if that was just a paid roster bonus or if it was a per game bonus that would bump that up a little bit. Only concern I've really heard about J.C. Horn is just that there might be some concern internally, just how much and how well he would fit into Spags' scheme. But if he were to become available, I mean, Panthers still have him. They got a fifth year option on him for next year, which is obviously very manageable for a player of his skill set. I would imagine that they obviously would be interested in trying to sign him long term, and if that's the case, you don't really want him to go for cheap. So, and that comes back to the hey, Brett Veach doesn't want to give up a first, second, or a third next year. Actually, any first, second, or a third. So. That would be, I think, the compensation would probably be the trickier deal there. Yeah, but I've heard Horn's name mentioned quite a bit. I don't know, and like I said, I think that if the Panthers make him available, I think the Chiefs would absolutely kick the tires on it. I don't know if they'd be able to get it done because, like I said, I think if the Panthers make him available, it's because they want a pretty healthy return. I don't think they would be doing it for a day 3 pick, and that's about what the Chiefs would want. So. I think we'll wrap it up there, everybody. Thank you for joining tonight. Thanks for everybody for taking part in the discussion and the comments. I love it as always. You're all the best. Appreciate the questions. I thought you all had some great ones tonight. A little bit different schedule this week with the Monday Night Football game. So Nick and I will not have 41 is the mic until after the game Monday. So there'll be / Tuesday morning. So technically you'll get us twice on Tuesday. You'll get 41 is the mic hitting your feeds in the overnight hours Tuesday morning. And then we'll be back Tuesday night for the live Q&A. And that will be trade deadline night. So the trade deadline will be behind us. If the Chiefs make any last minute moves, we'll be able to talk about it and break it all down then. Since there is a big gap and everything, if anything pops up this week, might try and do a quick unscheduled discussion if we need to, if the Chiefs get anything done. So be on the lookout. Make sure that you hit the bell to get notifications so that if there is a surprise, Q&A or even just a live stream or an interview, anything of that nature this week, anything from One Arrowhead Drive, will be out there at practice on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week. So any interviews, anything like that, hey, if I'm able to convince Travis to talk to us this week, you'll have that. So appreciate everybody. Like I said, we will see you after the game Monday night for sure, and then back for next week's live Q&A. So everybody have a great week. Take care.